My name is Justin Cramer, and this is my Marine Corps story.
What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so. If you're on YouTube, follow on Apple and Spotify, like, share, and comment. That would help us out a lot if you could comment. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. We are very active in those channels. If you have anybody that you would want to get on the show or you'd like to tell your own story, please hit us up and we'll send you our email to get you on. And with that, let's get into the episode. Justin Cramer, welcome to the show, man.
What's up?
Dude, I appreciate you coming on. I know you're super busy. I know you got your own show and our time zones, so it's a little early, probably where you're at. But thank you so much for taking time out of your day and doing this.
Yeah, not a problem, man. Yeah, it's a little early. It's like 7 a.m., but I usually get up between 4 and 5 a.m., which is insane.
Yeah, and that's normal for you.
I don't even use an alarm clock. I just wake up.
It's internal, huh? Yeah, I feel like that's me too. I usually get up at 5 or 6 daily. Well, my work week, I start off at 4. So
You can just get so much stuff done, you know?
yeah, you do. And I like getting everything done early. I'm like you, like, hey, where you're like, hey, let's do this early. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm down. I'm down, dude.
Yeah, for sure. Early's good. I get up and I go for a walk. Last year or so, I've made it a routine to go walk almost pretty much every morning.
Yeah.
Either anywhere from like 2.5 to like 8 miles.
Oh, wow.
Just depending on what I want to do that day.
Yeah, especially where you live is pretty nice, dude. The environment, I'm pretty jelly because that's my my dream destination, but I don't think I'll be able to afford to live there one day.
It's crazy. So for those that don't know, I'm in San Diego, and it is fucking really expensive. It's super expensive. I could move back home and live in a way nicer place. I'm from Indiana originally. I could move back to Indiana and live in a way nicer place for what I'm paying to live out here, and because I work from home,
Yeah.
my pay would be like getting a 15% pay raise just for
Right.
moving, because of less taxes and all the other stuff that comes with living out here in California.
Yeah. I think the sacrifice though is the weather, man. I mean, I know y'all think 85 degrees is hot, but
Oh yeah, this is the worst part of the year. I don't know why people come out here in the summertime. I'm like, dude, it's so hot. The sun is intense. Like,
yeah.
yeah, it's no joke. Come out in spring and fall. That's the best time.
Right. I think when was the last time I was there? I was there August, and it was relatively hot, dude. I couldn't even sleep because it was like,
So hot.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and
dude,
there's no AC.
yeah, I know my for example, my biological mother, she lives in a condo, and she was so adverse to turning on the AC.
It's so expensive, man. My buddy Michael lives downtown and he has a spot. And he told me, I think last summer, he said when he ran his air conditioning, only after he got home from work. So you're talking like from 5 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
He was paying almost $400 a month electric bill, or I think it was over $400 a month
Damn, that's expensive.
for a 2-bedroom apartment. To cool a 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild.
Yeah.
Dude.
So
Yeah, I mean, we run our AC, and my bill's probably roughly $170 a month.
yeah, the California, man, it's great. It's the best place geographically and like physical landscape. You can do almost anything.
Yeah.
But politically it sucks. It's just, but you just have to kind of deal with it.
Yeah, I felt like San Diego was pretty it's not neutral, but it's not too far.
No, it's not
You
as
know?
bad, and it's not like, and when I say politically it sucks, I'm not like, oh, the blue-haired left-wing
Oh,
crazy
okay.
people.
Okay.
I'm talking about the policies where, like I said, every morning I go for a walk, and I'll give you an example. And I don't know, we don't have to go into a lot of details here, but every morning I go for a walk, there's a guy that's sleeping underneath the bus bench every day. And he's laying there in his own urine and like shit. Like you could see the urine flowing down the sidewalk from where he's just laying there pissing on himself. This guy is there every day and they can't do anything about it. He actually is. I was talking to my neighbor who's a homeless advocate. He works with homeless people, and he said that guy has a bed space at a shelter, and they're getting paid for him to be. It's not a shelter; it's like a halfway house kind of deal.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
getting paid for him to live there, but he doesn't actually live there. He just sleeps on the street and doesn't take care of himself. And because of the policies here, they won't do anything about it. He's allowed to just sit there and do that. And I feel really bad for like the older, I see these older like women going to work in the morning and they got to take the bus and stuff to go to work. And they got to sit by this guy or they got to stand around this guy. And it's just, I'm like, what is this? How is this okay? How is this good for him? How is this good for the community? You know,
Right. I wonder if
so
that's like that everywhere because there is a lot of homeless here in the San Antonio area. So for people that don't know, they're generally located in like one spot, but I wonder if that's the same case. Like they get paid like for the halfway house or homeless shelter, and they
a
just
lot,
don't show up.
a lot of the fraud that you're hearing about when it comes to homeless NGOs and stuff like that is
Yeah,
exactly that. They're getting paid to provide a service that they're not actually providing. On
yeah,
paper, they can say, "Hey, we got this guy a house, we got him a bed," and if he never shows up, that's on him. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? But they're as an NGO, they're getting paid by the government. So that's one of the aspects of the fraud that people are finding and trying to
I
end
didn't
because
know
it's
that.
ridiculous. Yeah, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. Like I feel every day I look at this guy and I'm like, dude, I've literally seen him crawling on his hands and knees with his ass and stuff hanging out and just like covered
Yeah,
in feces, covered in urine. Police won't stop. Police won't do anything. There's
yeah.
nothing they can do. You know, it's like I said, it's not good for him. It's to
Not good
say
for
that's
community.
it's to say that's a humane way to treat someone to allow that to continue because he's
Yeah,
obviously out of his mind is just crazy. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It does good for nobody.
yeah. It's definitely. I don't know how to. I don't have the answer to how to handle this guy because like if you just round him up, then we're like, I don't know. Do you force him to go there? It's kind of like a weird.
So the whole reason we have homeless on the streets now is because of Reagan when he was the governor here in California.
Hmm.
He pushed to get rid of the state run mental institutions because his idea was the government shouldn't be telling someone if they're insane or not. We shouldn't be under the business of being like this guy's insane, lock him up. I agree with that
Fair
because that can
point.
obviously become a political weapon, right?
Yeah, fair point.
But there has to be some kind of like middle ground where someone who is obviously insane, like this dude down the street,
Yeah,
it's like there's no question here. Like this should be taken care of, and it's just
yeah,
kind of ridiculous that the policies won't allow it.
yeah.
Sorry to
I'm
get into politics right off
no,
the
no,
bat.
you're good. I actually, because I mean, you have that former Action News thing too, and like I like the report. Would you consider it reporting?
Yeah, I would call it reporting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not a. I'm just
reporter.
I'm aggregating news is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, for those that don't know, I have Former Action News. I host the Former Action Guys podcast. While I was in college. Well, where do you want me to start, man? I don't know. We're kind of jumping around. Do you want me to?
Oh, I don't have a flow, man. So you just talk, dude.
So I'll just give like a quick background. I did 12
Yeah,
years in the Marine Corps.
yeah, yeah.
I came in open contract on like an
Hmm.
idiot and became a mechanic. I did that for 3 years, and then I did a lat move. I switched jobs and became a forward observer,
Yeah.
and then from there I became a JTAC. I got out in 2018, and I started college. And while I was in college, when I was in the Marines, I was with this small unit called Anglico. Most people have never heard of them.
Yeah. I want to
Even
get
in the
into that. Yeah.
even in the Marine Corps, a lot of people haven't heard of them. And I got out, and somebody was like on Facebook, and they're like, "Hey, is there anybody at the unit that can get me a T-shirt?" Because no one made T-shirts for them because no one's ever
Yeah.
heard of them.
Hmm.
And I was like, "That's kind of crazy. We're still doing this." So I locked myself in my apartment over a weekend, and I built my first website by watching YouTube videos. I don't
Hmm.
know any idea how to do anything like that, so I just watched YouTube videos. I built my first website, and I started selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
So while I was in college, I started selling T-shirts, and then I started the podcast, the Former Action Guys podcast, because I knew a lot of other fire support guys, JTACs, and stuff that did way crazier stuff than I ever did. But I was like, no one's ever going to hear about it because like they're just regular guys. They're not special operations, they're not whatever, so no one ever hears their story.
Hmm.
So I started the podcast, and then at the same time, I had like a meme page kind of going for my website on
Right.
Instagram,
Uh-huh.
and I was in college as a journalism. I majored in journalism and
Okay.
advertising at San Diego State University, and I would sit at home and watch um like hearings, like Senate hearings and stuff like that. Like I'm a nerd. I sit here and watch the news. I watch hearings. I watch press conferences. And I remember watching Amy Coney Barrett was going through her confirmation process to be Supreme Court justice. And Mazie Hirono, which is the Democrat senator from Hawaii, asked her a question about something about gay marriage or something about the gay lifestyle. And her answer included saying like, someone's sexual preference shouldn't determine blah, 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 blah. when she said sexual preference, Maisie Hirono jumped on that and was like, sexual preference, you think it's a preference that they can be gay? So she's like, that's a bigoted comment. That's, whatever. And within a few hours, the Merriam-Webster's online dictionary changed the definition of sexual preference to be a slur. And I was like, holy crap. The
Yeah.
only news outlet that did a story about this was the AP, the Associated Press. They did like 3 paragraphs that mentioned this. No one else picked it up. I think Fox might have picked it up later on. But I remember seeing this happen. I'm like, this institution, this dictionary that we see as our, this is just a thing that everyone uses.
Yeah.
They're changing the definitions of words in real time for political purposes. And I was like, that's crazy. I just watched this happen and no one knows it's going on. Like no one realizes that's happening. And so right after that, I switched my Instagram page from like a meme page to a news page.
Right.
And I was like, man, people got to know, there's so much stuff that happens, and I get people don't have time to watch the news, and most people catch headlines and stuff like that. So I try to bring like good video to the actual page. But if you look at my stories, I'm on X all day long, and I'm pulling news stories, and I'm posting X posts that give information about news stories around the world, around the country, and stuff like that. Just because I want people to be more informed,
Yeah, and that's good too, man. You're not really pushing like either side. You're just like saying, "Hey, this is what's going on," and that's what I like to commend you on because I don't. I try to stay off X. X is like the dark, the start of the dark web, in my opinion. So, but dude, your Instagram page, man, it's so like you just get information and like let people make their own decision.
And the other thing too is I don't delete comments under the video post, under my main post. Like if people want to debate it out, there's some crazy. Every once in a while, I'll be like, "Damn, you guys need to relax." Like some people will go through and say a bunch of racist shit, or people will go through and say a bunch of whatever, and it's like, "Jeez, dude." Like I feel bad leaving some of the stuff up, but I'm like, you know what, man? Like people need to know that's who these people are. Especially some of these people that post on public accounts. It's like you're being that kind of person on your public fucking Instagram page. Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, that's crazy. You just don't give a fuck, I guess.
Yeah.
But,
Ever since I started mine and I got into the space, man, it's wild. It's definitely way different from when I had my private accounts and everything like that. And it's just I mean, it's eye opening because that's how Americans are. And then other people from other countries too, like what their opinions are. And I'm like, do we even need to take opinions from these people about our country? Not really. So, but yeah, I appreciate it, dude. And I actually I love your podcast too, man. I'm more focused on, I mean, you probably are too, but I really trying to preserve this history of the global war on terror.
Yeah.
Well, even though it's continued kind of, because we're still like, I guess, under the funding of the global war on terror. But it's so wild to me that like 2001 to now, we're still under that umbrella.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think we knew, especially once the wars, I guess, kicked off and then continued for a while. I think we kind of knew that it's probably not ever going to end. Not like, I don't mean necessarily like there's going to be always a full-on occupation of a country or something like that, like Afghanistan, where we invade and we do all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. Again, people don't even realize what special operations guys are doing in Africa or the Philippines. Like there's all kinds of stuff happening that people don't even, they think that Russia and Ukraine is the big thing, and Syria, every once in a while picks up Israel, Iran, Israel and fucking Lebanon right now. Like they think that that's all that's going on, but it's like, man, there's a lot of, I remember when there was that Green Beret team that got ambushed in Niger probably 5 years ago or something like that now. And a lot of it was on video because like some of the guys were wearing GoPros and people were like, wait, we're in Africa? And it's like, dude, dude.
Yeah, I just saw a big article about Congo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we're all everywhere. We're all over Africa right now because China is all over Africa. China is going into these different African countries and they're making these deals with these countries like, hey, let us build you this dam. we're going to do it at this price with these they'll put these kind of crazy rules in place that essentially mean that the country's going to default and that becomes Chinese property and now they own everything that it's touching, right?
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
China going through and working on the infrastructure for a lot of African countries, trying to throw money at them because that's where there's a lot of these rare earth minerals, there's a lot of resources, so they're kind of spreading themselves out. And I don't know if I don't honestly, I don't really know the history, if that's a counter to us doing that or if that's more of us countering them doing that, who started it first. But we're both there competing, and with Russia as well. You see Russia is in like what's that country? I don't remember. Russia's been in a few countries there as well. They replaced some of the French troops in like Mali and stuff.
Okay.
Like they kicked the Mali people, kicked the French out, and then they brought in Russian troops.
Dude, you're educating me on a lot right now, dude. We could do a whole episode on just that, but no, dude, honestly, it's important though, because you like me on my social media, everybody's just arguing about Israel and Iran right now, right? Like, are we giving too much taxes and all this other stuff? And I'm like, dude, it's such a complex thing.
I don't even get involved with when some people are so anti-Israel, every comment they make is like
Jew.
It's like, you're fighting for the Jews. Oh, good goy, blah, 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 that stupid stuff. And then you have people that are so like pro-Israel that they're like, it's just so crazy when you see these like eccentrics on either side get into the comments and they're just like, they go back and forth with it's the same stupid remarks back and forth. Oh, yeah. Like stupid stuff like that. It's like, I don't know, man. No. I don't get into all the conspiracy theories and stuff like that. I think Israel is another country that has, it does have influence, and I don't think it has the influence that people give it credit for. I think they wish they did, but
right, yeah, no, it's good though, man. I really appreciate what you're doing with the Former Action News, man. It's good, just information. That's what people need to do, is take information and then determine what they want after that. So,
I appreciate it.
So you joined the Marines in 2005 or what?
2006.
2006. Yeah, okay. How were you what made you join the Marines? You said you were from Illinois, right?
Indiana. So Indiana. I joined the Marines. I grew up as a military kid. My dad was in the Army, and I remember watching him leave to go to Desert Storm, and I just kind of was always not obsessed, but enjoyed like military stuff, like military history, military movies, military books, all of that stuff. And then when I got into high school, I read Marine Sniper by Carlos Hathcock,
I've seen the book
in Vietnam. And I read that, and I went from like, before that, I was like, I'm going to join the Army. I'm going to become an Army Ranger, become a sniper. And then I read Marine Sniper, and I was like, fuck that. I'm going to the Marines. Like, that shit sounds crazy. Like, these guys are awesome. It sold me. And September 11th happened. And, it was just it wasn't like a surprise that I ended up joining. It took me a little while to get in. I got in trouble before I joined. I got arrested. So it took me a little bit to actually be able to join. And then when I got there, when I actually joined, because I had gotten in trouble and stuff, and it had taken me a little while, I thought I had secured an infantry contract. And that's the one time I can say my recruiter lied to me. And to be honest, it wasn't my recruiter. It was the other recruiter. Because my recruiter was like, hey, man, we're going to try to get you this infantry contract, but it's going to be kind of difficult because everybody wants to go in Marine infantry for whatever reason. And it got all the way up until like literally a couple days before I was supposed to go to boot camp. And I called the recruiting office. And I was like, hey, man, is that infantry contract good to go? And my recruiter wasn't there. And this guy was like, yeah, you're good, man. You're ready. We'll see you on Friday or whatever. He wasn't going to, I just getting ready to shit. Like, no, dude, it's fucked up. We got to. So I leave and go to MEPS thinking, like, going to boot camp thinking I'm good to go. And I get down there. I get down there, and the recruiter or the career recruiters that work at MEPS are like, so what job do you want to do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what job do I want to do? I'm infantry. And he was like, nah, dude, you can't do infantry. He's like, you got to wait at least 3 months if you want to do that. And I'm like, what? Because I had just sold my car. I'd moved out of my apartment. I quit my job and found out the week before that my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. I was like, fuck, dude, I can't wait 3 more months. Like, I'm literally between a rock and a hard place right now. And he was like, well, if you want to leave today, you can do supply, admin. And I'm like, dude, fuck all that. Like, that's not what I'm joining the Marines for.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you know, you can still go infantry if you go open contract. And I'm like, dude, if I go open contract, I'm going to become a cook or a fucking mechanic. And he's like, no, 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 no. And but like I said, I was kind of between a rock and a hard place. And I was like, dude, fuck it. I'll gamble it. And went open contract, went to Paris Island, spent the summer of 2006. Dude, it's so hot down there. We were talking about heat earlier. The heat and humidity in Paris Island in the summertime is out of control. It's miserable. So spent the summer there, got done, and got to so in the Marine Corps, you go through your 13 weeks of boot camp, and then you go after that, you get 10 days off, and then you come back for MCT, the Marine Combat Training. And then if you're infantry, you go through the School of Infantry. You go that way. School of Infantry. Underneath the School of Infantry is Marine Combat Training, MCT, or ITB, which is the Infantry Training Battalion. So if you're infantry, you go to the Infantry Training Battalion. If you're a POG like I was, you go to MCT. So I go to MCT. Oh, I forgot to say, at the end of boot camp, they're like, hey, open contract people, come over here. We're going to tell you what your jobs are. And they're like, Cramer, Geographic Intelligence Specialist. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I go home on my boot leave and I look it up and I'm like, well, it's not infantry, but I'm going to end up with like a TS clearance, which is cool because maybe I could get a good job when I get out. Yeah. And it was essentially like a map making job. And I'm like, okay, so I'm planning for this now. I'm like, all right, here's where the school is. Here's where all this stuff, I'm doing all this research before. Then I go to MCT, get to the end of that. And at the end of MCT, they tell you your MOS, where your school is, and then go go talk to that guy,
Yeah.
And they're like, Cramer, so-and-so, 3521, Camp Johnson. I'm like, what the fuck is a 3521? And they're like, motor team mechanic. And I was like, oh my God. I was so mad, dude, because I said that to the guy. I was like, I'll become a fucking mechanic. And it happened. And I was like, damn it. And so then I go to my MOS school. And while I'm at MOS school, my son was born. And go to that, come back. I'm in MOS school. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll get sent to a cool unit and I'll still get to do some cool stuff while I'm in. And we get, and then the staff sergeant was like, Cramer, so-and-so, so-and-so, 2nd Maintenance Battalion, 2nd MLG. And then he laughed. He goes, that's the worst fucking unit in the entire Marine Corps. And I was like, fuck. I was like, God. And dude, it was miserable there. It was like, it was almost like factory work where you have to like PT beforehand because you're there like 7, you're like turning wrenches from like 7 to 5, pulling motors. I could come in, someone will pull in a Humvee and I could have the motor on the ground by lunchtime.
Wait, where's this at?
In Camp Lejeune.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was at 2nd Maintenance Battalion.
Yeah, let me back it up for a little bit. How was boot camp for you?
Boot camp wasn't great. It fucked me up. I mean, I think anybody that goes through Marine Corps boot camp comes out fucked up a little bit. Like I remember. So first off, everybody that goes to boot camp wants to be like the gray man. You don't want to be seen. You don't want them to know your name. You want it to get to the end and they're like, who's this guy? Oh shit. Like don't even recognize you. And I thought I had that going for me until about the 3rd day. I think it was like the 3rd day. And
pretty early.
Yeah. I've always been like a big dude and Marine Corps standards are strict. And when I came in under a waiver because I think I was like 5 pounds over or 10 pounds. I don't remember what it was. I was under some kind of waiver. So they're like, hey, you group of people that are on waivers or on like close to your max weight, you got to go down and see the corpsman. And the corpsman's going to determine if you're overweight and need to go on a diet plan while you're here, or if you're fine and you're just going to eat food like regular. And what happens is they call it I don't remember what they call it, but I know if you get put on this like plan, they put like 2 white stripes on your t-shirt. So everywhere you're running around, they're like, there's the fatty, get him, kind of deal.
That's fucked up. Dude.
It's fucked up. Yeah. If you're ever in boots and utes, you always have like these 2 white stripes on your shirt and they always know that's the guy. And so anyways, I go down, I'm talking to the corpsman and the corpsman's like, yeah, you're a big dude. He's like, but you're not like obese. He's like, you're going to naturally lose weight while you're here. So I'm not going to recommend you get put on this program. And I'm like, all right, good to go. And it was like me, my buddy LaPointe, and then another guy. And the other guy got put on the program. And then there was a whole other group of people from other platoons that got put on it. And we get back to, we we get done. We have to run over to meet our platoon because they're PTing on the PT field, and we run over there, and they're like, "What'd the corpsman say?" And we're like, "Sir, these recruits were told that they're fine." Da, 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 da. Just told them go start PTing with everybody else, and then like a couple hours later, we're in the squad bay, and I just hear one like our kill hat, the junior drill instructor. He's like, "Cramer, LaPointe, get on the quarterdeck," and we got run up there and stand in attention. He's like, "Why'd you lie to the senior drill instructor?" Blah blah blah. And I'm like, "Sir, this recruit was told by the corpsman." Da da da. And I start trying to explain myself, and he's like, "I don't care what the corpsman said. The medical officer said you're fucking fat. Get on the pull-up bar." He's like, "Do as many as you can." It's like me and this other dude are like, "Do as many as we can." And he's like, "No, just hang there." And we're just like fucking hanging off the pull-up bar. He's like, "Hang there." So this is like, dude, day 3. Now the fucking worst, the guy you don't want to know your name knows your fucking name.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like the worst. So every time after that, every time we'd be marching anywhere or anything like that, there'd be a sand pit or something. It'd be like, "Cramer, LaPointe, get out of formation." And we'd have to go get fucking killed in the sand pit as everybody else marched by and then run to catch up with them. And it was just like, that sucked. So
that's wild, dude. Because I mean, the corpsman's not lying. You're gonna naturally lose weight, right? The food they gave you, you're not intaking. You're walking everywhere.
yeah, bro, I'll send you a photo. I'll send you a photo of me. You can throw it up on the screen if you can. I'll send you a photo of me at my graduation of boot camp. And when you see that photo and how skinny I am, I'm actually like 5 or 6 pounds overweight in that photo. They had to take me out at the end of boot camp.
Oh shit!
I'm just a big dude because I'm wide. I'm like a wide fucking.
Yeah. How tall are you, if you don't mind me asking?
6'1".
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, you're a larger individual.
Yeah, that was the best part about getting out of the Marines, was never having to worry about doing a fucking weigh-in or anything like that again.
Yeah, I'm like you, but I'm not that tall. I'm only 5'9". So
and the Marine Corps does not fuck around with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude. So but were you just hefty growing up too? So it's kind of like,
yeah, again, I'm just like a big dude, man. I got a long
Yeah.
torso. I got wide hips and stuff like that. So it's just, even at my skinniest, like I said, I'll send you that photo and you'll be like, "Holy shit, this dude's skinny as fuck." And then, but I'm to the Marine Corps, I'm like, at that point, I was like 5 pounds overweight.
right. Damn.
So last time I was under 200 pounds was at the end of the Crucible. And then I immediately gained like 5 more pounds back. Because, at the Crucible, you get like 1.5 meals and you hike like 50 or 60 miles in like 3 days or something like that.
Yeah.
So at the end of that was the first time I'd been under 200 pounds since probably, I don't even know, middle school.
I feel like I can't get back to that point, dude, to get under 200 pounds. So when
I
you
have
went
to starve myself,
Yeah, when you went to MCT, like, what are they telling you guys are gonna do? Because I mean, 2006, everybody wants to be infantry because of Iraq, right? Iraq's a big thing right now. Are they kind of telling you like, hey, you guys might go into the shit, or no?
I will say this was so MCT is basically, for the other branches don't really do this, right? You guys do all of your machine gun shooting and stuff like that, grenade throwing, all of that stuff happens in boot camp. In the Marines, all that stuff happens in MCT. Boot camp is literally just marching and getting fucking hazed and shooting rifles sometimes at the end.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're just marching, getting hazed. All the other like combat stuff you pick up in MCT. So the MCT instructors are a mix of people. The SOI, the guys that go to ITB, the infantry training battalion, all of their instructors are obviously infantry guys. And our people were a mix of there might have been a couple infantry guys, but I remember one guy was like a door gunner on like a Huey. He was like a air crew. And then there was like some S4 girls that were there and stuff like that. So I kind of was let down. I felt let down by MCT because I didn't think people there were taking it seriously enough. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, I get it, we're mechanics and fucking admin and whatever, but like, you should probably know how to use the 240. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Well, and I'll give it to them that I say that as someone that wanted to be infantry, right? So we were probably doing way more than a lot like other branches give their admin and pogues and stuff like that training wise. But to me, I was always kind of looking over at the infantry guys with a little bit of jealousy because that's where I wanted to be. So I was always kind of like, man, I was a little disgruntled while I was there.
Yeah, the support, you need the support element so big time.
Yeah. And the Marines really push, every Marine a rifleman and stuff like that, which is kind of a running joke. Because we know some people we know, yeah, everyone qualifies at 500 yards and stuff at boot camp and everything, and then throughout the fleet, but that might be the one time that person carries a rifle for the entire year.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Not every, so when I was a mechanic, I didn't even have a rifle issued to me. The only time I got a rifle was when you either getting ready to go to the rifle range, you go and check one out, and then you go shoot, you go do your rifle range stuff, and then you come back and you turn it back in, and that's it. You don't see it again. Or you're getting ready to deploy. Then they'll give you a rifle because that's not your job. We weren't going to the field. We weren't going out and doing field training. We were coming in and just replacing parts and fixing Humvees and 7 tons and LSVs.
Yeah.
I got lucky. A couple months after I got there, there was a program that got called up. It's called the EFSS, the Expeditionary Fire Support System, which is like a test mortar and like little Jeep looking vehicle. And it pulled a 120 millimeter mortar. And my leadership didn't know what it was. And they were just like, yeah, send this new guy, send Cramer to go work on this. And
that's cool.
It was the best thing that they could have done, dude. I went out, all these guys that I was working with, these infantry dudes had just gotten back from like Ramadi, and a lot of them were getting ready to get out, so they're all in their last 6 months. They don't really care. And I get to see all the arty guys, and I'm working, and I'm a new pogue that's never done anything cool. And I remember we went to like the range and we were shooting 50s off of it, and one of the machine gunners is like, hey, you want to shoot? And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. He's like, you ever shot one? I was like, no. And I was like, MCT, and he was like, oh shit, well, hop up there. I mean, these guys had literally just come out of like crazy combat, like Ramadi 2005 2006 time frame. And they're like, dude, they're just handing me cans. They don't even care. These dudes shot fucking probably millions of rounds. They're just handing me cans of ammo, and I'm just loving it. I'm like, and then I go over the arty guys are like, hey, you want to drop a mortar? Like, yeah, well, yeah, dude. So I'm like, I'm living the dream now.
Yeah.
And then I got sent back to my unit.
How long were you there for?
As a mechanic, I was
doing that little detail you're doing.
So I did it twice. The first time, I think it was like 3 months, maybe 3 months, 4 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe 6. It's between 3 and 6 months. I don't really remember. And the first time we did it, I was in North Carolina. We stayed in North Carolina, did a lot of driving out there. And then we flew out to 29 Palms, and we did a lot of driving out there. And for the Army people that don't know, 29 Palms is near NTC. And then from there, we drove up to Bridgeport, which is our mountain warfare training center. And then we did a lot of driving up there. And I was just like, dude, I'm having such a great time. And then I got back to my unit, and I was miserable again. And this is kind of something I try to push in my own podcast. And when I tell people, I talk to people and try to give them advice, like, you have to take control of your own destiny, right? You have to see opportunities when they appear and know that it's your time to take that opportunity and run with it. And I say that because I got back to my unit, back to turning wrenches. It's miserable there.
Yeah.
And someone was like, hey, those mortar, like 6 months later, they're like, hey, those vehicles that you worked on are back on base. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, they're gonna run another test. Sergeant so-and-so's going. And I was like, oh, no way. I was like, damn, I would have totally done that again. And I'm like, where are they going? He's like, yeah, we're going to Alaska. We're going to 29 Palms. We're going. And I'm like, oh man. He's like, I don't want to fucking go to Alaska. Like, this sergeant's complaining about it. And I'm like, dude, what? I'd love to go to Alaska. And I was like, dude, fuck this. This guy doesn't want to go. I have a good relationship with everyone that worked on that program. I was a Lance Corporal, like talking to the major from Marcorps Syscom, like not like we were bros, but it was pretty comfortable talking, because he and I were working together so much on like trying to get this vehicle ready for testing and stuff. And I remember one day I was like, dude, fuck this. I want to get back on this program. So at lunchtime, I drove around the base until I saw one of the vehicles in the motor pool, and I pulled into the motor pool, and I was walking up, and the major I knew walked out, and he's like, Cramer. And I was like, sir, what's up? He's like, you want to come back over here? And I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, we tried to find you in the system, but we couldn't find you. He's like, I'll do a by name request and get you orders. He's like, we'll cancel that other sergeant that's supposed to come. And I was like, all right, cool.
Hell yeah.
And that's what you got to do, man. Like, if I'd have just accepted it and been like, oh, Sergeant so-and-so's going, like, I knew I had built a good I knew, even though I didn't want to be a mechanic, I tried to do as good as I can, because if you're an asshole, then you're not going to get anything, right? You know, no one's going to be willing to help you. But even though I didn't want to be there, I tried to do as good as I can at that job. And I built good relationships with the people in this program. So I felt comfortable going back and doing that. Had I been a dick and I knew that they didn't like me, I probably wouldn't have done that. You know what I'm saying? But if you are doing what you're supposed to be doing and an opportunity like that arises, man, you got to jump for it. Because how much different would my life or whatever, that could have changed the whole trajectory of my military career, you know, not doing that. So, yeah, take those opportunities when you see them. You gotta jump on it.
And those are like 3-month details. Those are like 3-month details, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah, it was something like that. It was like 3 or 6 months.
Yeah. That's good. It took a lot of your time up, like just instead of going to the motor pool, you know?
Dude. Yeah, I loved it. It was, like I said, we got to go to Alaska. And when we went to Alaska, I guess when they loaded up the vehicles and the mortars, a couple things they did wrong. They didn't match the serial numbers with the bill of lading on some of the trucks. So there were mortars and trucks that, you know, they were crossed. They weren't supposed to be. And then they had left the firing pins in the mortars, I guess. And so when they were trucking them up to the border and crossing into Canada, they got stopped at the border for like a few days, for like 4 or 5 days. And we were already up in Alaska and we had nothing to do. So we like went ice fishing. Like our lieutenant got a hunting license and got a rifle from one of the civilians on base and was out shooting snow hares and stuff. And then like we did all this stuff. And then when that actual testing was done, we had this like big ass cookout at the place in Alaska. It's Boyle Lake cold regions test facility or something like that, for those that may know. And we had this big cookout where we cooked the snow hares that the lieutenant had killed. The fish that we had caught. One of the civilians brought in a bunch of moose meat. We made moose burgers and stuff. You know, it was so awesome.
Alaska is one of the best places I've ever been, dude.
Did you get to see the Northern Lights?
Yeah. I lived in Fairbanks for 5 years.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah. I saw it when we saw it. We were up in Fairbanks actually, because that cold region test facility has like, it's all fenced in and it has these like super bright lights all around the fence. And so we couldn't ever see it. And then we went up to Fairbanks to go to the bar one time. And we were getting ready to walk into a bar and someone's like, oh shit, the Northern Lights. And we were like straight tourists. We're just out there like, oh my God, for like 10 minutes, just watching it wave across the state. I mean, you know, I try to explain to people, I'm like, dude, you can't really understand it until you see it, especially when it's like super active and it's like changing colors and like waving and stuff. It's crazy.
It's hard to explain, dude. Like it's such a crazy phenomenon that you're like, you have to go experience it. You can't just wait around and not just experience it, man. People don't realize what they got when they're up there. Okay, so you're what, 3 years in already? You're kind of feeling are you feeling kind of unfulfilled with your Marine Corps career?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm watching guys deploy. You know, I'm doing this test program, which was cool, but I also wanted to deploy. You know, everybody that gets in the military is like, oh, I don't want to miss the war. You know, especially at that time, because we all thought it was going to end soon. And I did miss one deployment because I was on that test program the first time, because I was on the test program and then they were like, hey, you're tapped for deployment. And then the test team was like, no, he's with us. And then it became like an argument where like colonels and stuff were arguing over Lance Corporal Cramer, if he was going to stay on this test team or if he's going to deploy. And then they asked me, like, what do you want to do? I was like, honestly, the test team's cool, but this may be my only chance to deploy. So I'd rather deploy. And then the guy was like, well, that's cool, but it doesn't really matter what you want. I was like, all right, cool. So I did those 2 test phases, finished that, got back to my unit, and then another deployment came up, and I deployed to TQ Al Taqaddum in 2009 with maintenance battalion. Well, what happens with that unit is, that's the other thing too, is like when you deploy, you don't deploy as a whole unit. They just take like, hey, you 20 are going to go as mechanics. You 15 are going to go and work with the MPs as security. And then we get like an attachment of reservist mechanics as well. Then we form a company of active and reservist. So we deployed like that and attached to 2nd Supply Battalion in TQ. And it was essentially the same job. You know, you just go there and turn wrenches, but now we're doing it on MRAPs and stuff like that.
Did you kind of like think you were going to be doing the same job, or you kind of wanted to do something more while you're over there?
I always wanted to do more. When they said, hey, some of the guys are going to be going with the security element, you're not going to be mechanics at all. You're going to go and you're going to be like the gunners on trucks and stuff running convoys. I was like, that's what I want to do. And of course I didn't get that, you know, because that's what I wanted to do. I was like, fuck, you know? And then, every chance I could to like do something a little different, like, there was like a training opportunity came up that we went on, and we went to South Carolina. A handful of us went to South Carolina to learn how to work on the newer MRAPs at the time. The whatever, I can't remember the name of the company that makes them, but they were based in South Carolina. So we went there, and that was interesting because if you've seen Transformers, you see that one Buffalo MRAP that like skates down the highway and is like knocking cars and shit with its big claw arm. I worked on that one. I actually have a photo of the back door of it. They welded a Decepticon logo on the back of it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I went as a mechanic. I didn't enjoy being a mechanic, but I always tried to like at least do a good job. And if any other opportunity to do something different came up, I jumped on it. Like I didn't care what it was. Like we got to Iraq and they needed someone to operate the crane. I pretended like I knew how to operate a crane. And I was like, yeah, I got it, man. I jump in. I'm like, fuck it. It's only a couple levers, And fucking they just let me. I did it enough. One of the civilians came over. He's like, you don't know how to do this. And he like showed me a couple things. And then after that, they just let me do it. And I became like the crane guy. And I was like, hell yeah.
Well, like, so what kind of area of Iraq are you at? Like
TQ, it's I think it's like 30 minutes south of we're by Habaniya, Lake Habaniya.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're like 30 minutes south of Fallujah, I believe. If you're driving. Yeah.
It's a big area though.
Yeah, TQ is it had a roll to medical facility. So it's one of the main medical facilities, in that part of Iraq, in the Sunni Triangle area. And so our facility was at the very end, the far end of the flight line, but you could see these like medevac helicopters coming and going. You're just like, fuck, and that's what kind of killed me when I was there, is being a mechanic. Like, again, I didn't want to be a mechanic. I wanted to be combat arms. And we would have guys that were sitting there bitching about like the internet's not very good, or they don't have enough stuff in the PX. And I'm like, dude, there's dudes out there fucking like fighting, actually getting blown up. Yeah. They don't have air conditioning. They're not sleeping in cans, or you guys call them chews.
The conics. I don't know if y'all had conics things.
Yeah. They called them. So in Iraq, we called them cans. The Army called them chews, the containerized housing units. It's like a Connex box with the bed and stuff in it. So it was for me, the most frustrating thing a lot of times was that these other guys that were in the military kind of forgot that there's like a war going on. It's like, dude, there's shit happening out there, and you guys are complaining about just nonsense right now. Like you have it really good on base. So
yeah. Did you so during y'all do like 7 and 7, right? Like 7 on and then 7 off or something. I don't know how they did in the support.
It depends. Yeah. Well, for us, it was definitely longer than 7 months off because we weren't really rotating the whole unit. So, some units would do 7 on, 7 off. They would try to do like 7 months and then like a year off. But part of that year is doing your workup as well. So
yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I don't know how long your initial contract was, but like during that time, is that when you decide to change your job, or you're like, hey, I want to continue being a Marine? You didn't really have anything on the outside yet, or what?
No, I was like, I wanted to stay in. And when I was there, I was coming up on my reenlistment, and I talked to the career planner. One of my buddies was like, hey, I think I'm going to do a lat move to be a forward observer. And I'm like, hell yeah, dude. I'm like, that'd be a cool ass job. And it was actually one of the jobs I'd mentioned to my recruiter when I first joined. And I said I wanted to do infantry. And he was like, we might not be able to get that. And he was like, what about tanker or forward observer or this? And I was like, that'd be cool. So he said that, and that kind of reignited that in me. And I was like, oh yeah. Cause I was like, I could change to infantry, but I'm like, man, I don't really want to switch to the infantry as like a corporal coming up on sergeant. You know what I'm saying? Coming from motor T, like not really knowing anything, but now I'm supposed to be like a squad leader, or maybe, a fire team leader, squad leader, or something like that. Like, I feel like that learning curve is pretty steep. And I just didn't know how that would go. So when he mentioned forward observer, I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do that too. So we both put in our packages, and I remember my other buddy put in a package to go to MARSOC. And when I first went down there, they were like, hey, there's only one boat space left, and you and this guy are competing for it. My buddy they'd already eliminated him for some reason. And they're like, you and this other guy are competing for it. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, we're going to know by tomorrow who got it. And then the next day he's like, hey, you didn't get forward observer. What else would you want to do? And I'm like, man, like, fuck, dude. Like, that's what I really wanted to do that. Like, that's a cool ass job. And then, but I had a buddy who was also a mechanic, but he was a mechanic over at MARSOC. And he had gone to like Ranger School and all these other, like, he'd done a deployment with a MARSOC team and essentially was integrated into the team. It was like a MARSOC team and a Green Beret team and him. And he was like the mechanic, and he would go out and be like their security element, or he would help them shoot mortars. And I was like, okay, well, if I have to stay as a mechanic, then I want to go somewhere like that where I'm actually getting to do some cool shit.
Yeah.
And so my career planner was like, all right, come in tomorrow and I'll have your paperwork ready. And I was like, all right, good to go. And I come in the next day and he's like, hey man, you're not going to MARSOC anymore. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? And I just kind of like, this is bullshit. Like, fuck this. I'll just get out. Da, 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 da. And he kind of let me rant for like a minute. And he's like, well, do you want to hear the good news? And I'm like, well, you never said there was good news. So, and he's like, I talked to the monitor and your forward observer package got approved. And I was like, oh shit. The monitor is like the head person in each MOS that decides who goes to what unit. They decide you're fucking, you know, they're like, so-and-so is going here for this deployment. So-and-so is going there for that deployment.
Mm-hmm.
So they opened up an extra boat space for me to allow me to lat move to forward observer. So I lat moved. I signed my paperwork while I was in Iraq, did everything there, came home. I was home for probably a month or two, and then I was on my post-deployment leave, and they called me, and they're like, hey, you got orders to 2nd Battalion, 10th Marines. You need to report next week. And I'm like, I'm on leave. And they're like, all right, report in 2 weeks. And I was like, all right, good to go. So showed up there and started my, you know, I showed up and I immediately got promoted to sergeant because the MOS, the forward observers 0861 MOS promotes faster than a lot of other MOSs because there's a high turnover rate. It's a stressful job. It's a lot of field time, a lot of deployments, and a lot of guys don't, you know, they don't really like it. So there's a high turnover rate, which means promotions come faster than a lot of jobs. So it was kind of weird showing up as a sergeant. And honestly, I didn't know how to read a map. I didn't know how to do anything. You know, I had another sergeant literally showing me how to plot on a map the first day I was there. So
yeah,
there was a really steep learning curve. But my first fire support chief at the time, Staff Sergeant Klein, and then Gunnery Sergeant Klein, and then I think Master Sergeant Klein, he was just a wealth of knowledge, and probably the best person I could have like studied under was that guy, because he demanded, you know, he had demanded professionalism from the forward observers. He's like, when you go out there, dude, because in the Marine Corps, the forward observers you're with the artillery units, and for deployment, you get attached to an infantry unit. So you're always an attachment. So he's like, you know, when you get out there, you're alone and unafraid, man. You know, you think in the movies, it's like you running around and you got a radio operator and all this stuff. It's you. The radio operator, they're not going to let the radio operator go with you. You have to know all of our job and how to run your own comm, you know, and we made that like a huge priority, and it was so much better than being a mechanic.
Yeah, that's how it is in the Army too. Like the forward observers, they're in the artillery, and then they get attached to infantry units and stuff, and they're often tasked to do the forward observer and the radio guy too. So
yeah, exactly. In the Marine infantry, they also have like the mortar sections. They'll have a mortar forward observer, but those guys aren't school trained. They know how to call for fire, but they don't know how to do it to the same like level that a trained forward observer can do it, you know, because we can register guns, we can do all kinds of different stuff with it.
Let me ask you a question. So with you knowing that the turnover rate for forward observers is really high, it's a stressful job, like you're constantly in and out. And I don't really know the situation going on with you right now, but like you did have a newborn.
Mm-hmm.
How are you trying to balance all that? Like knowing, hey, I still got to be, are you kind of like, hey, I got to be there for him too, but then I got all this stressful stuff going on?
Well, I actually didn't realize the job was that busy until I got into it.
Okay.
I knew the job was obviously some kind of busy because the promotions were faster and there was a bonus to re-enlist. So that always means, you know, they need people. Why do they need people? Either the job sucks and they're leaving, the job's stressful and they're leaving, or dudes are getting fucked up, you know, and they need replacements. So I didn't really know going into that. And yeah, you know, it was really strange. Like I was thinking about this the other day. I think the first 5 Father's Days that I was a dad, I missed 4 of them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I've missed so many holidays, birthdays. Like I hate to say that I became like comfortable like not being home. And I don't want to say, man, I hate to say it like that. You just get kind of used to it. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
the military, when you have a cool job in the military, it's a very selfish profession because generally a cool job means you're out doing stuff all the time, which means you're away from home a lot. And you're
Yep.
doing that because you love the job. And I'm not saying I love the job more than my family, but the job was cool as fuck. And it was like, I'm going to turn this down to go do something else. Like, I was a JTAC there for a while. It was like you go to the field and what do? You control your own air show every day. If you're out training with aircraft, you're doing your own air show. You're like, hey, fly here, fly there, bomb that, do that. Like
Yeah.
it's the best thing ever. So it's
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna do that. Like I don't know. I think you really have to. The bad part is the guys that don't come home and then like spend that time like wisely with their kids, family. And I'm guilty of that. I'm guilty of that because I had a job where I was gone so much. It was kind of nice to just come home and sit on my couch. Like, I don't want to go do anything. I just kind of want to chill and just, be here because I've gone so much. Whereas the family's there all the time and they're like, we just want to go somewhere. We want to go do something. And so you kind of, I don't know. It is a balance for sure. It is a balance for sure. But I think, if you want to do like a really cool job,
Yeah.
a lot of times you just have to be okay with you're not going to be home a lot. I talked to the MARSOC recruiters about going over there as a JTAC, and they almost like try to talk you out of it. They're like, hey, how's your marriage life? Hey, you need to understand you're going to be not home 200 to 250 days a year, and that may even on years you don't deploy, which is kind of a joke. Is there going to be a year that you don't deploy? Like you need to understand the op tempo is extremely, extremely high. And so it's not like you didn't know. Like getting into it, you may not know, but after a while, you kind of get the gist of it. You're like, oh shit, especially as a JTAC. I knew JTACs. I remember Staff Sergeant Jeremy Rugg was deployed, and him and the other guys in his kind of class, his era of JTACs, they'd be in Afghanistan and they would get an email telling them about their next deployment before they're even home. And that's the guys that were doing 7 months there, come back, and they're going to go do 7 months more. And, it just, some of those guys were just back to back to back. They'll do like back-to-back deployments with an infantry battalion, and a lot of them went over to MARSOC. And then once you get over to MARSOC, the JTACs, again, you're not part of any team permanently. They have a platoon of JTACs that attach to teams. The JTACs deploy more than the team guys do because they deploy with a team, come back, take a little bit of time off, and then start their workup with another team that's getting ready to go out the door. So they're actually on a longer cycle or a faster cycle than even the operators are. And those guys, you can see the burnout. And that's why it's really not uncommon. You hear someone that was in Miami West that got out after 12 years. A lot of jobs, people are like, 12 years, what are you doing? You got 8 more years, you can retire. Well, that's easy to say, but I deployed in 2009, 2011, 2013, 2014 to 15, 2016 to 2017. So when you tell me 8 more years, that's a lot. That's a lot of shit that could happen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Especially, I mean, and it's hard, right? You're choosing between doing like the best job, right? Like, when you do your job in real time, that's like the best career thing you could ever do, but you're getting burnt out too.
Yeah, I mean, being a JTAC, being a fire support guy is a high stress job because you're dropping bombs on stuff, and you can't mess that up. And even in training, guys will get a little relaxed about it, and you got to remind them sometimes, like, hey man, imagine this is real life. Your rounds are off a little bit. What did you just hit? Did you just hit a random house? Did you just hit a fucking wedding party? Like, what are you doing? Treat this as if it's real. And then just the inherent danger, the inherent danger of being in fire support. My very first field op, I was out with 2nd Battalion, 10th Marines. I was in the Fire Support Coordination Center, which is like where you go in. It's like a tent we set up. and you do approval of missions and stuff like that. And my very first field op, one of the batteries was getting ready to shoot their check round. So when you start a field exercise in artillery, the first thing you do is you shoot a check round just to ensure that the base data is correct. All you're looking for is for it to hit the impact area in within the safety box that you've defined. And they shot that check round, and the powder guy put in half of what he was supposed to, and the chief didn't check it, and the round landed 50 meters from us. And I remember I was sitting inside the tent, and I hear shot target number da 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 da, and it's like boom. You hear that in the distance, like the boom. And it's like, okay, we're sitting here waiting, and I tell my buddy, I was like, hey, you want to go outside and watch the fireworks? And he's like, nah. And he's like, let's just chill. And I was like, all right. And we're sitting there, and I just hear boom. This is my very first field op. This is my very first time going out with artillery. And I was like, damn. I go, damn, it's a lot louder out here by the impact area. And one of the guys was like, that was too loud. And my gunny was standing outside the tent, and he goes, check fire. And just we start picking up all the radios, check fire, start saying check firing in all the radios. And we're like, we come out of the tent, and we're like, where did it hit? And he just points over, and literally it was like 50 meters. This round landed right next to us.
Oh, shit.
I've had shrapnel from naval gunfire skip between. I was standing next to a guy talking to him. Skip between our feet. I saw it hit between our feet and then fly another 50 feet behind us and land in the back of a pickup truck. It's this jagged piece of metal the size of my hand. I was like, oh shit, that would have hit my leg. Like, oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, in fire support, stuff happens. We had an artillery tube explode when I was at Fort Bragg in 2011. One of the rounds exploded when they rammed it into the gun. It blew up the howitzer and injured a bunch of people. Like, it's just an inherently dangerous job. So, yeah, I mean, over time, I really enjoyed the job because it felt like I was doing something important and it mattered. Like the details mattered. You can't mess something up. You work in S1 and you mess up someone's pay. That's frustrating, and they're going to be frustrated, and it's annoying for you to fix it and stuff like that. But, no big deal. No lives lost. As a JTAC, if I give in the wrong coordinates, there's so many examples of JTACs who have called in ordnance on themselves, who have called in ordnance on targets that weren't supposed to be dropped on, who have called in ordnance on targets that were supposed to be dropped on, but the aircraft dropped on the wrong target. Like the work matters, and the results of your work are real. And it was so hard to like not enjoy that because it's like, damn, like and especially when you're good at it, you're like, oh god, dude, this all worked out. Like this fire plant, everything's blowing up, like
yeah,
it's awesome.
Yeah. So what was it like your first trip over there to Afghanistan?
So I went to Afghanistan in 2011 so I got to, let me back up. I got to 2nd Battalion, 10th Marines in 2009, right after I got back home from Iraq. I went to MOS school in 2010.
Right.
And then I started, the whole time I'd been doing training. 2011, we went to Fort Bragg. That's when the howitzer exploded and injured a bunch of people. And then following that, I went to Chiefs Course, Fire Support Chiefs Course at Fort Sill. And then I attached the 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, and went to Marja in 2011 as the battalion fire support chief. When I first got there, so my previous deployment was to TQ in Iraq, big air base, multiple chow halls, all around the base, like little shitty PXs, not great ones, but still PX. We got to Marja, like city center, and I remember flying into FOB Marja. It was nighttime. My lieutenant met me because he'd gone there on Advon, and the ops chief met me as well. I remember him walking up, and he was in like green on green, like PT gear, came up to the LZ, and he just looked miserable. And my lieutenant was like, "Hey, Sergeant Cramer, this is Master Sergeant so-and-so, or Master Gun so-and-so." And I was like, "Hey, what's going on, Master Guns?" He's like, "Hey, how you doing, man?" He's like, oh, "Sorry, man." He's like, "We've been having a rough couple days here." And my captain was like, "Yeah," or lieutenant, he might have been a captain at the time, I don't remember. He was like, "Yeah, there's like dysentery going around. There was something in some of the food, and like 25, I think they had to medevac like 25% of the people because they were just shitting themselves." So
yeah.
So the first day I'm there, I'm like watching people literally run for like the wag bag stations and just have like shit running down their legs, because they're fucking, or stopping and puking, because they're so fucked up. And I'm like, Jesus. And then down the road, a suicide bomber tried to set off a suicide vest and blow himself up, but got shot by, well, it malfunctioned. And then he got shot by an Afghan soldier, and then he just laid there and burned to death because his bomb didn't go off. It just caught him on fire. And I was just like, shit, this is going to be a different deployment than Iraq. You know what I'm saying? Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
The first 24 hours, what the hell's going on? We got suicide bombers and people shitting everywhere. Like, so, but that was that was a cool deployment. Normally, if you're a lat mover during that time, and you deployed with an infantry battalion, they would want you to go as a scout, even as a sergeant, because you haven't done that time that worked at a junior Marine. Because the junior Marines, private through corporal, lance corporal and below is junior Marine, but corporals and below are usually the guys that are going out on like foot patrols and stuff like that. You're not usually, as a sergeant, you're moving up from that. And but because I had worked under Gunny Klein and I had gone to Chiefs course and stuff like that, they're like, hey, we're going to go ahead and trust you to go and be the fire support chief and run the whole section. And I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, I didn't want to do that because I'd rather been out doing stuff than be there, because I only got to go out like a handful of times for missions that my other guys couldn't cover. And but I did get to do all the call for fire. We did HIMARS strikes on guys. I just remember the first HIMARS strike we did. There was a guy, I was sitting here on my computer and I was like doing some stuff like map work. I was like I don't remember what I was doing. I was doing some stuff on my computer, like updating it. And someone saw a IED emplacer on one of the GBOS cameras. And they're like, hey, I think we got an IED emplacer. And I like turn and look. I'm like, oh shit. And they're like, the watch officer, the S3 Alpha, the assistant ops officer, was like, he's like, hey, can you do a call for fire? And I was like, yeah. So I turn around and I get on my computer to contact the battery and the agency, to the approval agency and stuff. And right when I went to go do that, all my data had gone down. So now I can't contact anybody. But the guy I relieved had set up this netted Iridium radio. It's like a little push to talk SATCOM radio. And we would do comm checks with the battery and the approval authority twice a day for months, and you never used it, but you still do the comm checks twice a day. And so data went down. I picked up that radio and I did a voice call for fire for HIMARS. I mean, I was shaking. This is my very first like real life. These are real dudes. This is real. And I just remember being like, oh shit, like shaking, like,
yeah,
like watching the screen. I'm like, this is me, fire for effect, grid, and it's like a 10-digit grid. And there were 3 guys and called it in, and the approval was actually really quick, and we got the shot off and we're watching, and it's just like boom, like the screen whited out, came back, and one of the guys is obviously dead laying down, one of the other guys was probably dead, and then there was a guy that was kind of stumbling around, and he goes to try to like pick his buddies up and do some stuff. And my opso was like, hey, can you do that again? I'm like, yeah, repeat target number whatever. And as they're getting ready to shoot, the guy had like picked his buddy up and was like stumbling away with this guy on his back or something like that. And they're like, oh shit, he's getting out of the target area. Like, hey, go ahead and just cancel the mission. And I'm like, hey, rocket's in the air already. They're already shot. And we watch, and the screen whites out again. And then, but it ended up hitting the guys and just kind of smoked all those guys. And I just remember being like, fuck yeah, dude. And they told us the next day, after the BDA and stuff, they're like, yeah, that dude that you killed last night was, he had just gotten here from Pakistan, and he was here to train these guys on how to emplace IEDs. So that was like his first group of guys that he was like teaching how to put in IEDs and stuff like that. And I was like, fuck him,
yeah.
I'll say, I'll talk. I don't want to sound casual about like blowing someone up like that. But I have no problems going to sleep at night with everything I've ever done. I have no problems. The guys that we blew up, I remember I think it was the second HIMARS strike I did. That guy had built an IED that had injured one of the officers previously in the deployment that had to get medevaced and go back home. So when we found out it was that guy, again, it was like, fuck that guy. I'm glad he got it. because it was, and I've said this a few times on my own podcast, but people got to realize like this is a real game out here of war, man. They're trying to kill me and I'm trying to kill them, and that's the fucking end of the story. Like we can talk about all the fun stuff about being in the military and all the cool stuff and everything, but don't forget that there is combat involved in combat operations, and there's actually people dying, and it shouldn't be taboo to talk about it, because it's fucking real, and you get involved with that. And I will say some people aren't as comfortable with it as I am. Like I said, I have no qualms with anything I ever did, because everything I did I felt was righteous and justice. There was never civilians involved in anything I ever did. It was always legitimate bad guys that we knew had done bad stuff to us already or were in the process of doing it. So, but yeah, don't take my comments as taking it lightly. Just take it as I understand the reality.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people don't.
Yeah. I mean, you got a job to do too, man. Like a lot of people don't realize you signed up for most of that shit.
I mean, given the chance, any of those dudes would have smoked me as well.
Oh yeah,
that's the game, man. That's the game you're playing when you're doing something like that, and that's a hard pill for some people to swallow. When you talk about it, it's like, again, I'm not trying to be like casual, like, oh yeah, I smoked this guy, like that's
right.
You should always feel bad that someone loses their life, but at the same time, like I said, that first guy was there to build IEDs and show other people how to put them in.
Oh, yeah.
That we're going to blow our dudes up. So fuck them.
They would have been very happy to kill one of us, dude, at any moment. I mean, that's just how their culture is too. It's a reality.
It's, I try to tell people, like being over there is so medieval. It's you're talking about people that don't have plumbing, that live in mud huts, that sleep outside on the roof or on the ground in the summertime because it's too hot inside the mud huts. They cook bread over fires. They slaughter their animals and cook them daily. It's a very, very hand-to-mouth agrarian lifestyle that occasionally has a data plan, if the fucking cell phone tower is working.
Yeah.
And so it's like this weird place that their values and their kind of like morals and stuff are way different. And I'm not going to judge them for that because that's just how they grew up. They're in a much different environment than I am. And it's not fair to like place my American values on a Afghan farmer. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. How did you feel after that first, that mission you did right there? Like, how did you feel? You did your job in real time, dude.
Yeah, I was like, I remember turning around and I was like, holy shit. Like, it seemed like everybody and their brother had come into the command center to watch. And I didn't even know. There was like literally 15 people standing behind me. And I was like, oh shit, what's the S4 Alpha here? Like, what are you even doing in here? I felt fine, dude. Honestly, prior to that, I was getting ready to go like eat or something. So after it happened and we were just doing our, what do we call it? Like persistent video surveillance to stay over the target area until we do BDA. I went and made a bag of popcorn and I sat there and ate popcorn and waited for them to do the BDA, like
I'm more alluding to like, hey, you because you weren't fulfilled in the Iraq. Like now you're here.
Oh yeah,
you're here with it,
Yeah, I mean, being able to actually do your job is so fulfilling. You know what I'm saying? And even if it's a job like that, because there's nothing worse than like, hey, this is my job, but that's not what I actually do. Or I never get to actually do that. Like that's like in the Marine Corps, if you're like a Seaburn guy, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever they call them nowadays, the NBC guys, Seaburn, whatever. You think, oh man, I'm going to be messing with chemicals all the time and I'm going to be doing like radioactive stuff. And then you get into the Marine Corps and you realize, no, you're going to be the S3 chief. And then once a year, you're going to run a gas chamber for the unit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. Once a year, you're going to run a gas chamber for the unit. And then you're going to run PFTs for everybody. You're going to run height and weights. You're the S3 guy. That's, so yeah, being able to actually do your job is the best,
for sure.
Being able to do it in combat and be like, shit, like, to feel like you actually made a difference.
Yeah, people don't understand that.
Yeah, and it's cool. Like, it became like a thing. I remember one time we blew this guy up. I don't remember what it was. I don't remember which time, but we blew a dude up. And I remember walking to the chow hall afterwards. and there was like a chow hall, like a tent that we had. And I was walking over there, and this corpsman I knew was like, "Hey, I just heard an explosion." He's like, "Was that you?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, we just took out these fucking 2 guys." And he was like, "Hell yeah, dude." He's like, "Fuck yeah." He's like, "I'm glad somebody's getting to do something while we're here." And I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
It's because like, you know, there's a war going on, bro, and it's like you want to do something, and it's very frustrating when you can't. And
Yeah.
people will hear that and think, well, with that frustration, does it make you want to like maybe target something you shouldn't target, or something like that? And that's completely
That's
not it. Like there were so many times that I turned down so many missions. I got yelled at by one of my friends who was an officer. He's my friend now, but he was an officer at the time because I denied his mission. He was like, "You fucking people at battalion, blah, 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 blah," because they wanted to blow this house up that had IEDs in it. And the battalion commander was like, "Hey, man, we can't just be blowing up compounds. I got it. There's IEDs in there. Stay away from it. Like, that's the only thing we can do. Stay away from it. Don't blow it up because it looks bad. They'll use it as propaganda to be like, look, see, they just blew up this compound." And he tried a couple different times to like submit a package to like try to blow that compound up. And I'm like, "No, what are you doing?" The battalion commander said no. And so I think people think that we're out there just like slinging hellfires and shit and everything. But no, I was part of the approval process, and it's a lengthy process. And it would sometimes it would take too long where you miss the target because the approval just takes too long.
That's good insight though, because a lot of people that obviously, I'm not gonna get into who it is, but like a lot of people think we just were going over there kicking doors down or just blowing up houses for no reason.
Yeah, no, I mean, and maybe there were some units that did that, but I never saw that. That sounds, when I hear stuff like that, I immediately go to,
it's happened.
They're thinking about like special operations raids where they're raiding these different places, and sometimes they don't get it right, or they're going for one guy and there ends up 10 people being there, that kind of stuff that for sure happens. But down on the like your basic infantry level, battalion level, operations and stuff, it's not really happening.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are working under pretty strict ROEs, and it's not a lot of like, it's, people have this misconception. They think you're just in combat. It's not World War I. You're not sitting in the trench fighting all day, machine guns firing all day. Something could happen at any time, but the actual fighting is very, I don't know about you, but it's like here and there. It's like a pot shot here, very rarely would they want to like sit and actually fight with us because they knew we'd blow them up. It was like they tried to hit us with IEDs or do like pot shots or something like that, like quick ambushes. They do like a quick ambush and then pull through a couple tree lines, back. It wasn't just constant combat, and I think people kind of forget that.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, they probably have the perception of it was probably like Vietnam or something like that, and
so much boredom. No, for me, it was so much boredom, especially that first deployment when I worked in the command center. My lieutenant got pulled to go do information operations like a month after we got there. So I ran the whole section myself, and which meant that I was in the command center 16 to 20 hours a day because I was the approval authority for, or not the approval authority. I was the only person qualified to do Piss Off, which is a Precision Strike Suite Special Operation Forces. It's like a targeting software program where we could like validate grids. When we're going to strike something, we always put it in Piss Off to ensure that it's the grid that we're using is actually validated here. We call it mensurated. And and it would also hold all the little NFAs, no fire areas for like mosque and stuff like that. So I was the person qualified for that. So I was in the command center pretty much all the time, and it was boring 99.9% of the time. Like that's just kind of how. But then it would pop off. You'd be sitting there like not doing anything, and it'd be like, Victor 2-2 is in contact, taking fire from the west. What do we got? And you start trying to roll up fire. I got the JTAC and the air officer sitting next to me. They start trying to work aircraft. I start spooling up the artillery guys like, "Hey, we got something going on. Get your guns ready just in case." And they'll start pointing their shit that direction just to kind of get in there, cut a little time off of it. But yeah, it's a process though.
Yeah. What was your second deployment to Afghanistan like? I mean, you're getting up there in rank already. So are you kind of doing the same thing or what?
So when I deployed to Iraq, I was a Lance Corporal.
Afghanistan, my bad.
No. When I
Yeah.
deployed to Iraq, I was a lance corporal. When I went to Afghanistan the first time, I was a sergeant. And then when I went the second time, I was still a sergeant. And then about halfway through, I got promoted to staff sergeant. So I got home from that first deployment to Afghanistan and immediately got pulled to go to TACP school, Tactical Air Control Party School, up at EWTG LANT, which is Expeditionary Warfare Training Group Atlantic. And that's where the Marine and Navy JTACs go to TACP school at EWTG LANT or PAC. So they have a schoolhouse on both coasts. So I came back, went through the schoolhouse, got my certification as a JTAC, went back to 10th Marines, got my designation as a JTAC because you get certified and then you got to go back to your unit and you got to control more aircraft and drop more bombs. And then the commanding officer of your unit writes you a designation letter saying that you are allowed to control aircraft and drop live ordnance without supervision.
Yeah.
And then once you get that, I got that. And then almost immediately got pushed out to my next deployment workup where I was part of SFAT 2 TAC 215, the Security Force Advise and Assist team for the second Kandak, second something. I was an Afghan advisor. I was an Afghan Army advisor. I was the team JTAC. There was, I think, 18 of us, a mixture of infantry officers and enlisted, and then some support guys, some support officers, some S4 guys, commo, that kind of deal. And then all the enlisted side, radio operators, infantry guys, corpsmen. And the workup was essentially almost like going through MCT again. And they were like, hey, they start at the lowest common denominator because they're bringing all these people in from different MOSs to come in and do advising. So I remember like literally the first day, they're like, these are your NVGs. This is how you put the battery in. And I'm like, are we fucking serious right now? Like these are all like, there's a handful of guys that may not know this, but we could show them, So we do that. We do the advice. We do like actual role players. We have Afghan role players come in and we do all these things and learn, all the different like customs and courtesies and things like that. And fly out to Sangin in 2013. And I remember when we got there, the advisor team that we were replacing, they were just like so happy to go home. They were just like, oh, you guys got here early. Like, we are so pumped. And they're like, we're going to have a cookout because you guys got here early. So they like got some steaks and we're like sitting outside the tents, or we didn't have tents. We were sleeping in these, the HESCO. You have like the big HESCO, but then they have like the smaller HESCO. And for those that don't know what that is, the HESCO is just like think of like a basket that's got a felt lining that they can fill with dirt and they can stack them on top of each other. And they had smaller ones and they would build, we called them, I think we called them Hebs or something like that. But they were like HESCO bunkers essentially that you sleep inside of. And so you're essentially sleeping inside this like dirt bunker. And we're sitting outside the dirt bunker. We have like, we're inside the camp at, Fob Jackson and Sangin. And these guys are grilling out. And I remember just sitting there and like 15 feet over our heads, there's like tracer fire flying over. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, we're just sitting here cooking and there's like, we're taking contact, and they're just like sitting here grilling, like, yeah, man, da, 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 like, the post will take care of that, like, and they ended up calling in some Apaches and blowing up like a bunch of dudes. And I'm just like, holy shit, dude. Like, okay, like this is going to be different than Marja, like, okay. The next morning they pulled like a pickup truck up with like the bodies from the guys that they had blown up the night before. And they're like, yeah, these are those dudes from last night. And it was like, oh shit. Okay, here we go, And I just remember when we first got there, like that happened. And I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. We're just like sitting here with like this tracer fire literally flying over our heads. But you're safe, right? You feel safe. I didn't feel like I was in danger because I'm behind all these HESCOs,
Yeah.
And but so we were there for probably a month, and it was pretty quiet the first month because it was still kind of winter. And it was pretty quiet. And then the Taliban, they released an official statement. They're like, the fighting season has begun. That's like, they released it like officially. And right after that, dude, like the next time we went out, I remember we were driving up 611. We were driving north on 611, which is the main road through Sangin. And We get up there and there's this like dump truck that's on its side, and like the windows are all fucked up and stuff. And our team leader was like, yeah, just go around the vehicles. You know, obviously they're trying to stop us here. So just go around it. We go around it and there's another one. And then we start taking some contact from one side. We get a couple pot shots from one side. And what they were doing was, one, they didn't like that these contractors, local contractors, were coming in and paving 611. 611 is the main road through Sangin. It goes all the way up to Kajaki. But it's all dirt. So it'd be full of IEDs all the time. One of the main projects was to go through and pave it to lessen the amount of IEDs that were in it. So they killed these contractors to make them not want to do that. And then also they were trying to set up a little ambush on us. We ended up pushing through that, and we got past it, ended up going and setting up a vehicle checkpoint farther down the road, which is what we were on our way to do anyways. And then on the way back, I remember there was some Afghan police officers that were in contact. We were like, saw them up on the hillside. We're like, oh shit, they're up there like in a firefight. And our vehicle asked permission if we could go up and support them. And we got approval. We drive up this hill and we're in the 4x MRAP. And one of the guys goes to jump out of the back. I think our interpreter went to jump out the back and go tell these guys, you know, like, see if they need some help. He opens the door. And then you just hear like smack, 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 like 3 rounds like hit the back of the truck. And he goes, I'm shot. And we're like, fucking shut the door. Like pull the door shut, pull him in. And we're like, where you shot at? And he's like, oh, sorry, they shot at me. And we're like, oh, fuck, dude, we thought you were shot. Yeah. You know, like, holy shit, you know? Yeah. And then I don't remember. That's the main thing I remember from that day, from that moment. But that was like the first time we had really kind of taken any contact. And I was like, oh, okay. And then after that, dude, it would just be like, we'd go to like a patrol base and then we'd start getting contact, you know, from a tree line, or we were supposed to go out to this new Afghan patrol base. And we, instead of going straight there, we're like, hey, let's stop here real quick and see how these guys are doing, which is like on the road that would go out to this new patrol base. And we stopped and they're like, oh, we're glad you guys stopped. We just found a 500-pound IED out there. And they were like, shit. Oh, shit. Like they were waiting for us. Yeah, they knew that we would be going out to check on this new patrol base that the Afghans had built. So they put in this massive IED for us to hit. And yeah, it was just so different, man. Like our Afghans were getting killed. I remember one time we pulled up. Oh, it was the same time, actually. We went up to, or maybe it was a different time. We were going to that same patrol base. And I remember we pulled up and a Humvee pulled up, an Afghan Humvee pulled up as we were pulling up, and we got out of the vehicle, and the Afghan first sergeant jumped out, and we're like, hey, what's up, first sergeant? But then you could tell he was like all wild-eyed and like, and then they pulled this guy out of the Humvee. He was missing his foot. He had stepped on an IED, and the new patrol base is taking contact, and they're like, hey, they're getting shot at with RPGs and snipers and stuff. You guys got to go out there and help them. Yeah. And I just remember like, we were like, get in the trucks, everybody get in the trucks. And I just remember like getting in the truck and being like, oh shit, here we go. You know, like I'm like, we're trying to request air. I remember looking up at Fosberg, who was one of our infantry guys. He's an advisor as well. He's a sergeant and he's on the 50 cal. And I remember him like racking. He goes, let's fucking get some. And I was like, oh shit, here we go, dude. Like this is for real, you know, because we're like, you know, they're telling us like, hey, they're shooting RPGs at them. There's this happening. And when we get over to them, the firefight starts dying off and stuff like that. But I just remember like that moment. I was like, oh fuck, like this is about to get fucking crazy, right? You know, and it's that kind of thing, that kind of, oh shit, you know, shit's about to happen. That's a hard feeling to explain to somebody when it's like real life or death could be happening in the next couple minutes. You know what's happening. It's not like it just happened and now you got to deal with it. You're thinking about it for a second, you know, if you let yourself. I've talked to other people about this too. And I don't think a lot of people, I think if you're pretty well trained, you don't really think about it too much. I don't really think I thought about it too much. I mean, you do think about it. Like I said, I was like, oh shit, here we go. But then it was like immediately professional, like, all right, I need to request air. I need to do this. Let's get we got artillery kind of maybe set in the area, just at least so they're pointing in the right direction, you know? So it's like you start thinking of all the stuff that you got to do and do your job that you've kind of start to forget about how dangerous it is until something reminds you, you know, something gets blown up, someone gets killed, something. but yeah, we got there. There was a firefight for a little while. I remember me and Fosberg got caught in the backblast of a SPG-9, the recoilless rifle that the Afghans
Yeah,
used. They had
those are
it up on
dangerous.
the wall, and I moved up into this post. I was trying to find this sniper that was shooting at us, and he like rotated the SPG-9, and like the back of it was like facing towards the post. And I was like, oh shit. I tried to like get out of it, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna if I try to get out, I may catch a backblast in my fucking face. So I just kind of curled up in a ball, and it felt like getting punched in the face is what it felt like. It was just so much overpressure. And Fosberg, I think, took the most of that. But yeah, that was just one of those crazy days, man.
Do you think would you say that deployment your was like the most kinetic or
That was definitely the most dangerous deployment I went on, and it was the worst living conditions of any of my deployments. Barely getting enough food, just miserable. Like I said, we're living in a dirt hut. We
Yep.
had a prison gym that we had built. It was just, but I always tell people that was my favorite deployment
Yeah.
because I was doing my job. I was, I just felt like it was like the first time because I was the team JTAC. That was kind of my only job. I was the team JTAC and fire support advisor. So I would go out and help the Afghans try to set their mortars and stuff up and things like that. But for the most part, I was there to be the JTAC. So I didn't have all these other like little stuff things I had to do. And I went out. I remember when I first got attached, when I first got there, my gunny was like, "You're the JTAC?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, you're gonna be fucking busy, bro." Because I was the only one. So every time, within our team, we had 3 elements, one for each Afghan company. So anytime one of those elements went out, I went with them. I was always one time my team leader, the major, was like, "Hey, you're not going out tomorrow." He's like, "You need a break." And I'm like, "What?" And I was fucking furious. I remember talking to one of the captains. I was like, "Dude, what if something fucking happens and I'm not there?" And they're like, the major didn't like that I had been spending so much time on rooftops and just getting like dehydrated and stuff. And he's like, you're not taking care of yourself, bro. You need to we're going to tell you to take a day off because you're not doing it. And luckily nothing happened, but I just remember being furious that they left me behind. I was like, I was so fucking mad. But because I wanted to do my job, right? And I would have been livid at that major had something happen and I wouldn't have been able to be there to like do or help or whatever. I would have been so fucking mad. But
how would you how did you deal with the chaos?
I think when it gets really chaotic, you just when it gets really chaotic, things slow down. Things really do. Things slow down, but also speed up, which is weird to say. Like events happen very quickly sometimes, but like in the moment, it feels like everything is moving slow that you're given time to process a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like my mind works pretty quickly. So I remember just thinking, well, I could do this or I could do that. And, it's like I'm like having this little discussion with myself as this crazy stuff's happening. Like, oh, maybe I should try this. Okay, let's do that. But that like little discussion happened in probably a half a second.
Mm-hmm.
But if I tried to talk it out, it would take me like 4 or 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
So in the chaos, I think you find if you're well trained and you're good at your job, you find that a lot of the calming effect comes from doing your job, like being able to react to whatever the situation is and respond appropriately based off of how you were trained.
Damn, that's good. Yeah.
Now, if you aren't well trained, or maybe this is the first time you've ever experienced something like that, and it can become overwhelming. It's a sensory overload. That's understandable. But I think once you have the training and stuff, that chaos kind of goes down a little bit. And then the other thing too, and I used to tell JTACs and guys, JFOs and everybody training, to do that job, like just breathe, man. Like before you get on the radio, take a breath, like take a second. All right, let's do this. Because that just taking a second, and this is with anything that's really stressing you out, take a step back, take a second, take a breath, and kind of think through it for a second, and then move back into it. if you know, like I'm operating operating in like this moment where I'm not really fully ready for it. I'm not really with it yet. There's nothing, it's way worse to keep going like that than to take a second, kind of regather yourself, and then push forward with whatever you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because mistakes will happen. Mistakes are going to happen. But I think if you calm yourself down, take a second, take a breath, you can mitigate a lot of stuff, because it forces you to like break away from the chaos for a second and kind of think about, what am I doing right this second?
Yeah.
What do I need to do right this second? But yeah, I think, I guess quick answer is chaos. Dealing with chaos, if you're well trained, the training's going to kick in, and the chaos is just going to kind of operate in the background as you
Right.
do your job.
Yeah.
So
No, that's for sure. So you after this tour to Afghanistan, this was like your last tour in those areas, right?
yeah, following that, I did 2 deployments on ship.
Uh-huh. What did you think about that?
Um, so when I was in Afghanistan, I got promoted to staff sergeant, and then at the end of the deployment, again, my reenlistment came up, and they're like, "Do you want to reenlist?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do this." And I reenlisted, and then the next day they're like, "Hey, you got orders to First Anglico." And I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like I wanted to go to Anglico, but I didn't want to go to California. I was like, "Oh man, I don't want to go to California." So I was like, "Oh well, such is life." So get done with that deployment, go home. I call the guy that I'm replacing, which is funny because he was actually my instructor at MOS school. So I call
Mhm.
the guy that I'm replacing, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, dude? Like, I'm coming out in January, taking over the team, and I was going as the supporting arms liaison team, is what we call it. We call it assault, and at Anglico, supporting arms liaison team. I was going in to be the assault chief, and assault is like 18. I think it's like 18 guys. Again, you have two firepower control teams, and then you have the headquarters element with their own firepower control team, and then like your corpsman, radio operator, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I was the assault chief, and I call them, and they're like, "Yeah, when you get out here, the unit's going on a deployment on the MEU, the Marine Expeditionary Unit. So you go on ship as the Marine element on ship, essentially as a QRF for whatever's going on." And I was like, "Dude, I went to Iraq and I went to Afghanistan, and I'd heard about people that had been on MEUs, and they, some of them said it was cool. They call them a booze cruise. You go to a lot of port calls, you get to go party in different countries and stuff like that. You get to go train with other countries and stuff." And I'm like, that could be cool. So let's go do it. And dude, it was the most miserable fucking experience I had ever done. Like, it was the worst. I mean, I did get to go to some ports, I got to go to Hong Kong. I've been to Singapore. I've been to, a few places like that. But life on ship is completely different. When I was in Afghanistan, my 2 captains slept next to me. All of us were in one big fucking, well, we had 2 of them, but most of us were in one big fucking dirt bunker. We all slept together. We all ate the same food. We all, it was just miserable together.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the Navy, though, there's very much like a line where officers are, and then your E7 and above, the chiefs, and then everybody else. And if you're in that everybody else crowd, it kind of fucking sucks, because you get treated like shit. I mean, I was a staff sergeant. I'm a team chief. I'm not like a junior guy, but because I'm a staff sergeant and not a gunnery sergeant, I got treated like a fucking junior guy, because I can't go eat lunch with this other gunnies and masters, the other staff NCOs, the people that I'm supposed to be working with. No, I have to go eat with the E5 and below, because I don't rate on a Navy ship, you know? And they just treat you like shit for no reason. Life is miserable on ship, and a lot of it is like for no reason. And I've never worked with a group of people that are more like, that ain't my job, than Navy people. I had some respect for Navy people before. Blue side Navy or green side corpsmen, we fucking love them. Those dudes are legit all day long. Blue side Navy, half the people fucking sucked. At least half the people were just, they didn't want to be there. They didn't give a fuck. That they looked at you like you were an annoyance to them. Because imagine, you're on this ship with all these other Navy people, and then suddenly 1,000 Marines show up. Now, how long is a chow line when you got 1,000 more people? The gym is already small. Now you got to share it with 1,000 other people. So they're annoyed that we're on their ship. We're annoyed that we have to be on this ship. I have no job to do. I'm a JTAC. I'm not calling in airstrikes on ship. I would teach classes. I would teach fire support classes, and I would do radio training and stuff like that. But for the most part, I didn't have a job on ship. And it felt like being in prison. You're just really hoping at some point you could go ashore. Now on the plus side, we got to Kuwait and we were doing an exercise. My Anglico team was working with some Royal Marines, and we were out doing close air support and stuff with those guys. And while we were ashore doing this training event, our ship got called up to go do some actual work. I think they were bombing in Syria or Libya, one of those countries. So our ship got pulled away while we're still ashore. And, we're like, hell yeah, dude. 'Cause we're at Camp Buring, if you've ever been. And it was funny because we were at Camp Buring and the soldiers that were there, I remember we sat down to eat and the soldiers were like, this fucking food sucks, blah, blah, blah. And we're just like, fuck yeah, dude, this is so good. I'm so happy right now. Like, I can have as much food as I want. Like, it was just like, I was so happy to be there. And because we got left behind because they had to go do that other stuff, we had to figure out what to do. And I was like, well, there's squadrons here. Let's go talk to them. So we walk over to the flight line and talk to the Apache pilots. And we're like, hey, man, we got teams of JTACs here. We got nothing to do. So if you guys want to do some close air support training, let us know. And they're like, fuck yeah. So then we started doing close air support training 2 to 3 times a week in Kuwait. And then word got around, like Bahrain, they were like, oh, hey, there's these Marine JTACs up in Buring that are doing work. Let's fly the 60s up and do some close air support with them, So that part of it was awesome. We got to do some really cool stuff like that. But the actual like ship life, it was miserable. I did not respect the Navy people. One of our Marines got killed. We were doing the first insert of Operation Inherent Resolve. From the ship, we were sending Ospreys ashore, dropping people, dropping supplies. And one of the Ospreys took off on one of the days, and there was something wrong with the settings on the Osprey itself. And when it took off from the ship, it was going in and out of the water. The pilots were having a problem keeping it from going in the water. And
scary, dude.
Well, yeah. And they told the crew chiefs, they're like, hey, you guys got to ditch. You got to jump out the back into the ocean. And they're wearing full combat gear because they're flying combat operations into Iraq. And when they jumped out the back, one of the crew chiefs had the inflatable vest on, but his shit didn't work. And the other crew chief like held on to him as long as he could, and then ended up having to let him go. And the fucking guy drowned and died. Like when he jumped out, it like knocked him out. So he's like holding on to this guy to try to keep him above water as long as he could. Corporal Spears is his name, the Marine that died. And so that happened, and they were going to do a memorial service on the flight deck, and they had the whole thing set up. They did the roll call, where they the whole thing's like emotional, right? Give me a second. And we were doing this like memorial service, and I remember these fucking sailors were at the back on the edge of the ship. You have these like catwalks, and they're just over there like smoking cigarettes and like telling jokes and shit, and we can hear them laughing and stuff during this memorial service. And I just remember afterwards there was like a fight between the Marines and the Navy, and I just like, dude, by the end of that deployment, I was so disgruntled with the Navy. We did a crossing the equator ceremony, the shellback ceremony, and I refused to do it. And prior to that deployment, I'd have been all about it. That's something I was all about. But just the disrespect that I saw from the Navy personnel while I was on ship, I was like, fuck these guys. I don't give a fuck about their little tradition, their little haze fest, their little like, maybe one day you'll earn it. I'm like, fuck all of them. I've been to Iraq. I've been to Afghanistan twice, and I get on this stupid fucking ship and they want to treat me like shit. Like I haven't done anything. All these fucking fat ass pieces of shit sailors want to do this. Like, fuck them. And yeah, dude, that was kind of my was kind of my vibe by the end of the deployment. I just couldn't wait to get off that ship. And I got home and I wanted to screen for MARSOC as a JTAC. And I contacted them. And then at the same time, I found out that I was not going to be able to do that because they're sending me back to the MEU. But this time, instead of going as an Anglico team chief, I'm going to be permanent personnel. I'm going to be the MEU fires chief, which is an 06 command. And I was just like, dude, if you guys send me on this deployment, I'm getting out. And they were like, sorry, dude. And they sent me on the deployment. And, you know, I made the decision to get out. And I started, that was 2 years before my EAS. I told them that. And I just started taking college classes and just like prepping, you know, to get out. Yeah.
So you would say that the MEU was a driving factor of why you wanted to
100%. 100%. And it was like, it wasn't just like, oh, oh, wow, you don't like being on ship. Oh, you know, it was the disrespect that I saw. It felt like such a waste of our time. It felt like I hated like how the Marines were being treated, the junior Marines. I was constantly defending junior Marines to be able to eat. They'd be in line for chow and they'd be like, sorry guys, chow's over. No one else gets to eat. It's like, what are you fucking talking about? You know, I remember having to argue with people to get Marines to be able to eat. And I'm like, this is fucking outrageous. And the officers don't know about this because they're up in officer land, you know, and they eat as much as they want. They eat buffet style where they can go up and eat as much as they want while we're down here getting a single scoop of whatever and move along, you know? And I couldn't stand it. Coming, like I said, living in Afghanistan, I was sleeping right next to my captains, you know, and we were all together and we were all starving. We were all miserable. You know, some of the captains knew people that were sending these amazing care packages to us, like boxes and boxes of beef jerky. And they could have just hoarded that for themselves, but they're like, no, dude, let's set up a shelf here where everybody can, you know, hey, let's do this. Everybody, when you get something in your care package, if there's something that you don't really want, that you're like, okay with it, put it up on the shelf. That way, if somebody else wants it, and they have stuff up there too. So like, hey, there's extra ramen, there's beef jerky, you know, like that was our mentality. And then I go on ship and it's completely different. Yeah. It's like, why are you in this space? What are you doing? Like, who are you? Like, what the fuck? You know, I'm like, I couldn't stand it. And like I said, I just feel like I didn't have a job there, which is the worst thing for me, is like not feeling like I'm being utilized. And, you know, I got to justify, like we talked about earlier, I got to justify leaving home for 7 months plus at a time. Not seeing my kid, you know? Yeah. And if you're telling me that this is more important than me seeing my kid, I disagree. Like me, my second deployment, my second MEU, my only job on ship, I stood 1 12-hour watch once a week. That was it. Other than that, I worked out twice a day. I took a nap every day. I ate 3 meals a day, sometimes 4. You know, there was nothing for me to do. It was like prison. And so to back it up, the final straw, they said, hey, you're going to the MEU. You're going to be the MEU fires chief. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I'm trying to screen to go to MARSOC. I want to go over there, you know. And they're like, sorry, dude, this is a hot fill. You're the only staff sergeant that we have that's the timing works where you can go and go on this deployment. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make the best of this. Like I always do. I'm going to try to make the best of this. So when I got over there, at this point, I'm a JTAC evaluator. So at the time in the Marine Corps, you had JTACs, you had JTAC evaluators, and then you had WTIs, which is a weapons and tactics instructor. That's the highest level JTAC you could be. And the MEU had a seat for the WTI course. And I was like, man, I'm going to try to get on that. You know, maybe I don't want to come over here to the MEU, but at least if I go do this, then I can be a JTAC the rest of my career. I'm locking it in. This is it from now on. I'm a JTAC. And I remember I got over there and I was already frustrated. I was at Anglico. I was at JRTC in Louisiana supporting the Army and the British Army for an exercise. Got told about this deployment. Left JRTC, got back to Anglico, checked out on Friday or on Thursday, went to the MEU on Friday to check in. And I made sure to check in after like 6 o'clock on a Friday because I was like, yeah, I'm going to make sure nobody's here. And I get there and the entire staff is there. And I'm like, what the fuck? And my fires officer comes out and he's like, what's up, dude? You're my new fires chief. And I was like, sir. I was like, what are you guys doing here? And he's like, oh, welcome to the MEU, bro. And he's like, you ready to get on ship? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, we're getting on ship on Sunday. This is on Friday night. I just got out of JRTC like 2 days ago. And he's like, I was like, who's we? And he's like, oh, you're going too, homie. And I was like, fuck. So I go back to meet on Sunday to go get on ship. I meet him to go jump in the duty van and drive down to the ship. And I meet the air officer, the MEU air officer. And I was like, hey, sir. I was like, hey, what's up? My name's Staff Sergeant Cramer. I'm the MEU fires chief. I'm a JTAC evaluator. I was like, hey, do you guys have a seat to WTI? And he was like, well, I don't know, maybe. And I'm like, well, you do. Like, I was tracking it. You do. And he was like, well, do you want to go? Or he's like, why? Would you want to go? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, nah, man, that's an officer's course. Like, we're not going to send you to that. And I'm like, and when he said that to me, that was it. That was the final straw. I was like, fuck this, dude. I'm tired of people that don't know what they're talking about fucking like affecting my life and my career with just a offhand comment like that. Oh, yeah, it's an officer's course. I don't think we're going to send you. And they didn't send me. They didn't send anyone. We didn't send anyone on a seat that we had. And I was like, this is fucking bullshit. I'm tired of being disrespected like this. So I am for sure done. Like when that happened, I was like, for sure I'm done. And then the next day or 2 days later, I went, or actually right after I got off ship, I went to the education center and signed up for college classes. And I just started prioritizing like getting out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you finally got out, how did you feel? Because you kind of ended on a low note, I guess you can call it.
Oh, I was that guy, dude. I was a staff sergeant with nothing to lose. You know what I'm saying? So like I was getting out and like if something was fucked up and I was like, I saw that it was fucked up, I was just kind of like, that's fucked up, you know, and not everybody likes to hear that. But I'm a staff sergeant and I'm getting out. What are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care. That's stupid. We shouldn't do that. You know, it was mixed feelings because I loved my job. I loved doing what I was doing, but I just hated the fucking way we were being operated. We're being used, man. Like I felt being like, you know, the military is this big machine and you're just a cog in the fucking machine and that they really don't care. But at some point, I think if you're in long enough, you're like, well, maybe if I ask for this, you know, I've given up so much, they'll let me do this thing. And that's kind of where I was at. I was like, dude, this is my 5th deployment I'm about to go on, and I'm just asking to go to WTI, which doesn't affect it. Actually, it makes me a better person for this deployment. And you just don't send me just because. Like, there was no reason to not send me. And you know, that happened, and I don't know. It was mixed feelings for sure because I wanted to keep doing my job, but I just couldn't stand being disrespected and stuff like that. I couldn't stand being talked down to by people that outranked me but don't know anything. I remember this female gunny we had on the last MEU I did on my 5th deployment. This was her first deployment. This was her very first deployment. And because she's a gunnery sergeant, she can go into the chief's mess. That's where the E7 and above hang out. And me and a couple of the staff sergeants were bitching about it one time. And I remember her going, you know, one day you'll earn the right to go in there. And I was like, you fuck. Like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Like, who the fuck are you? Earn the right. This is your first deployment. We went on a training exercise and the mosque were all going off in the morning time. And I saw her at breakfast and she's like, did you hear that weird ass noise this morning? I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, all that noise. I was like, the mosque, the call to prayer? Like, you fucking boot. Like, you don't know anything. Like, it's so crazy that you would say some shit like that to me. So I was ready, man. I was ready to get out, but I was also, I didn't really know what I was going to do. I kind of got out and was kind of winging it. You know, because my schedule was so busy and I never took leave. I had 76 days of leave of terminal. So I essentially had 2.5 months of time to just do whatever, and I'm getting paid. So I started doing photography. I was already doing photography, but I was trying to maybe I can become a photographer and make some money doing this. And at the same time, I signed up for school. and started going to, because I had college credits, I had to go to the Miracosta Community College out here to get enough credits to transfer into one of the universities, because you have to be a junior to transfer in. So I started school, and I just kind of was like figuring it out. When I first started school, I started with a degree in business administration. And then I was very quickly like, this sucks. Like, all roads lead to a cubicle. This isn't what I want to do. And I had started the podcast at the time, and I had started the websites and selling t-shirts at the time. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to switch my major to SDSU has a program. Their journalism program has a couple different paths on it. You can be just straight journalism, or you could do journalism and advertising, journalism and public relations, and like journalism and something else. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do journalism and advertising. That way, if I want to try to go get a photojournalism job, I can say I have a degree in journalism. But if I'm trying to go get a job at an ad agency or something like that, I'll just say I have a degree in advertising. So yeah, I started school and just started grinding on the podcast, started doing the websites, doing photography. And yeah, just it all kind of built up, man. It all kind of went crazy. So I started the podcast, the Former Action Guys podcast, my first summer break from college. I had a few weeks, I had nothing to do. And, you got to maximize your GI Bill. It goes by time, not by like what classes you're taking. So I could have taken summer classes, but I would have only been able to take 1 or 2. And I was like, well, that's going to waste a lot of my GI Bill, because I could take 4 or 5 or 6 classes, And so I just took my summer off, and I was like, well, I have some time here, and I want to start this podcast. So I had all the equipment. I bought the equipment and everything, and I loaded up my Jeep, and I just did a 3-week like cross-country road trip, just to kind of go see all the stuff I've wanted to see. Went to multiple national parks and stuff like that. And then along my way, I either camped or I crashed on my buddies' couches, and then like did an interview with them. I'd go to their place, crash for the night or whatever, do an interview, and then be like, all right, bro, it was a good time. See you later. And then head out to the next place. Yeah. And yeah, that was my first summer break. And then when I came back, that was like my first 6 or 8 episodes of the podcast are of me on the road recording at different people's houses. So
that's pretty cool. I mean, shit, you found a way to do it, man, and you're doing pretty well at it.
Yeah, it's been I was way more active when I first started. I was doing episodes every week, and then for a little while I started releasing 2 episodes a week. And then I was like, man, it's going to be hard to keep that tempo up. So then I backed off to back to 1 a week. And then just different phases of life, different jobs, different requirements. Like I need to make money. I'm living in San Diego. The podcasts they don't really make a lot unless you're getting like millions and millions of views. Or you have like really good advertisers, which you have to have millions and millions of views to do. So like I'll have to focus on my other work and stuff like that. And I've had to like back off it, and just personal, man. It's such a, I was telling one of my friends, I'm like, every 2-hour episode that I record essentially turns into 8 hours of work. That's recording, that's editing, that's going through and promoting, that's the, contacting back and forth to set it up, uploading, all of that. Because I don't just record it and leave it as is. I go through and edit. If you watch mine, it flips back and forth between the speakers and stuff. Every time you see that screen change, that's me making a manual cut in the video file.
A split, right? Yeah.
So if you watch mine, every one of those is me manually doing that, and it takes me hours. And so, I've been pretty consistent with it. I think I have 242 episodes now, and I a couple months ago I hit 4 million views on YouTube.
Damn.
And yeah, man, it's been pretty cool. The news page is actually blown up more than the podcast, which is crazy. Well, it's easier to get views on Instagram, obviously, than it is on YouTube. But, in April, May, I think it was May. May, my Instagram, my news, Former Action News Instagram page had 26 million views in 30 days, which was fucking crazy.
I'm just happy to get 300,000 right now.
homie, I remember I used to tell people when I first started the podcast, I remember being like, oh shit, someone downloaded the episode today. Like the first couple episodes, you're like, oh shit, someone's listening, like, oh man. And I try to remind myself of that, like when I get bummed, like, oh, I'm only getting 1,500 views today or whatever. Like, what are
Yeah.
you talking about? 1,500 people fucking watch your videos. That's crazy.
It's real people too.
Yeah, so it's like like everything in life, you need to take a step back and put yourself in perspective. 5 years ago, would you have been like, man, I wish I could start a podcast and have anybody listen to it. And then 5 years later, you have one. Now you're like, man, I wish I could get 10,000 views an episode or whatever. 5 years ago, you'd have been happy to have 100 views an episode. And now you're suddenly, now it's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, so every once in a while, you got to take a step back and remind yourself, like, what are you doing this for? What are you doing this for? What are you trying to get out of it? And like, look at how much progress you've made, So,
for sure.
yeah.
We're coming up on the end of this episode. I do have a few questions for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Give me some dad advice, man.
Some dad advice. Father's Day is tomorrow, so I guess that's good. Some dad advice is be there and try to understand. I know which sounds fucked up from a guy that was gone so much. Be there when you can, and then understand that kids are kids. I think a lot of times people look at their 5-year-old or their 7-year-old or their 9-year-old or whatever, and they're like, why aren't you doing this? Like, I told you. And it's like, they're fucking 6, dude. They don't know anything. Like, so because of all the craziness I've experienced, I'm pretty laid back. And my take on like kids is like, you got to be pretty laid back. Like when they're crying and screaming and stuff like that, yelling back doesn't help. Hitting a kid doesn't really help. Like you just got to be able to like, okay, they're just going through this thing, let them finish whatever. I don't know. It's hard to be. I hate giving out dad advice because every situation, I'm so lucky. My son has never been in trouble. Like he was a little punk sometimes, growing up like all kids are, but for other people where you really want him to shine, he's always been great. He doesn't party. He doesn't drink. He does jujitsu like constantly. He teaches jujitsu. It's hard for me to complain about him, but I don't know. Dad advice, just be a good parent. If you went through some tragic or fucking traumatizing shit, break that chain, man. You don't have to put your own kids through that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that because I went through anything like that, but there's people that, abuse goes down the family line. And at some point, somebody's got to be like, I'm not going to be the person that does that.
Yeah.
So I would say look at stuff that you don't like that other parents do, and just don't do that.
Yeah.
And also know that it doesn't matter what you do, they're still a human being with their own like thought process and stuff. So you could be the best parent ever and they could still turn out to be a piece of shit, or vice versa.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
do
the best you can, set them up the best you can, and that, go from there, I guess. I don't know. Just be a good person.
Okay. Last question is like, for people that are still struggling from their service, what would you tell them?
This is always a difficult one because I don't feel like I struggle like some people do.
Yeah.
I know some people, and I feel like when I say, like, just, I don't want people to think, I don't want people to think I'm downplaying their own struggle. Like, well, get up, pussy. Like, well, you can't sleep at night, pussy. Like, I'm not. You got to come to terms. You got to come to grips with whatever it is that you did in the military. Again, going back to my own service, there's nothing that I did that I'm ashamed of. We had this, they would always say in the Marines, it was like, keep your honor clean. Come home and keep your honor clean. And that was always like, hey, we're going on a combat deployment, but that doesn't mean like we're going to go and waste civilians and do crazy shit. Like, you want to be able to like come back and be like, hey, everything I did was legit. And that's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that you have to understand that whatever it is that you're struggling with is probably based off something that's in the past. And are you going to let that thing that's from the past pull you down every day? Or can you start working? No one thinks you're ever going to forget things that you've done, or, it's tough because you have to learn to deal with it, I guess. You have to accept it. You have to become accepting in whatever it is that's fucking you up. You know what I'm saying? You need to be like, and you have to have an honest conversation with yourself. Know yourself and seek self-improvement was a leadership trait in the Marines. And I think you have to take that into consideration and go, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I sitting here sulking? Why am I upset that so-and-so was killed? Would he want me to sit here and fucking be crying or getting hammered again? Or would he want me to go out and do something cool? Like make a name for myself doing this. And, it's an individual struggle, man. That's a hard question to answer because everybody's going through something different. And not all of it has to do with combat and not all of it has to do with the military. A lot of it is just other life stuff all mixed in as well. And it's on the person to accept whatever it is that they're dealing with. And then I don't want to say move on, but kind of move on. You got to know it's there. It's always going to be there, but you got to understand that you got to accept that it's going to be there and just move on from it and be like, man, that's, yeah, that's a tough one, man. And I feel for the guys that are really struggling. I continue to question, the suicides and stuff like that. It's just like, I understand why some people do it. Kinda, I guess, like I know some guys are like, I've peaked. That was the greatest it's ever going to be. The things I did, the people I met, the relationships I built, and everything else sucks now. And it's just only going to get worse.
Yep.
And I think if you have that kind of mentality, then fuck yeah, it's going to get worse. Because you just accepted that. You're like, that you accepted that future with zero like pushback. You're like, well, life's going to suck forever now. So might as well off myself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, man. A lot of guys and girls, they need to come out of the military and they need to have a hobby. They need to have something that really they can get into and really kind of like take time up in their life.
Yep.
For me, that's photography. For me, it's doing the podcast. I have these things that I do. Photography, I like doing it alone. I will go with other people, but a lot of times it's just time for me to think about stuff and look around at the world and kind of appreciate the small stuff. That's, as a photographer, that's the greatest thing that has come from that, is like appreciating details. And, when you're having a bad day and you think, well, this sucks and that sucks and, this didn't, whatever, like think back to how bad it could be. Think back to those Afghans, living in mud huts that are going to sleep at night. They're going to sleep outside tonight after they cook their bread on the fire, because that's their life. Is that worse than ours? Is that worse than what you got going on? Be appreciative.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll end with this. We have the World Cup is going on right now. And I think the best thing that's happened out of the World Cup is all the Europeans and Asians and stuff coming to the US and just posting online about how great it is. I think people are realizing like, man, what am I bitching about?
Yeah.
There's this guy from South Africa who's talking about like, he's like walking around a street at night in the US. He's like, dude, I can't believe I'm walking around at nighttime. He's like, if I was in South Africa, I'd get killed. I'd be dead. As a white guy, I'm dead. He was like, we're driving at night. Like he said, he questioned his buddy who was like, yeah, we're going to drive from this place overnight. Like, what are you talking about? Because in South Africa, if you do that, you're going to get stopped at a checkpoint and get killed. And it's like, even a place like South Africa, where we think is probably pretty, modern or whatever, that's a thought that you would never consider here in the US. Maybe the worst of worst place, like you don't want to walk through there at night. But for the most people, we have it so good and we don't realize it, how good we have it. I lived 7 months where I didn't have running water and I didn't have a light switch where I could turn the lights off and on.
Yeah.
So it's like when you live in a life like that for a while, it really makes you appreciate all the other little small things. Right. And I try to remember that. I try not to forget that, like how bad it could be. It's like, man, this really sucks. And you start getting down. It's like, but I can go up to the grocery store and get any kind of food I want from any part of the world almost.
Yeah.
And make like the best meal ever. Whereas in Afghanistan, I was starving because there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that. I know I rambled there for a minute, but be appreciative. Like, look at, if you're feeling bad about yourself and about the country, go on X or TikTok and just search Europeans in the United States or Europeans in America, and just look at all the videos of these people enjoying this great country, and maybe take a little bit of advice from them and go enjoy some of the stuff yourself.
Yeah. I agree with you, man, because I say the same thing too. I always tell people, I'm like, you kind of got to get over yourself, right? And then also, I never really understood this men struggle thing. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying, like, you just got to be appreciative, like you said, dude. Like, hey, there's so much stuff that you're doing that you're doing it to yourself. Like, you're like, oh, I'm fat now because of this. Like, go change it, man. Like, you don't have to be the next Navy SEAL, or you don't have to be the next Green Beret, but just do something, man. Like, get out of your own element and
Yeah.
challenge yourself, dude. Be your own person, you know?
I talked about this on my own show. I guess I'll bring it up here because it's relevant. But I went through a breakup last year, or I guess it's almost 2 years now. It's about a year and a half ago. I went through this chick I thought I was going to be getting married to, and we ended up we ended up breaking up, and I took it pretty tough, and I got in kind of a bad place. Not where I was like suicidal, but I was extremely depressed. I was extremely just not taking care of myself. I work from home. So I essentially like isolated myself because I can not leave if I don't want to. And I just got to this point where I'm like, what the fuck am I doing, dude? I got in horrible shape. I was so fat. I was so sad all the time. And I would ask myself one day, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? And I was like, I got to change this, man. I got to make a change. And I sat down, I got on Chat GPT, and I was like, hey, I'm this height, I'm this weight. This is the food I like to eat. This is my goals. I have a scale that gives you like bone density and water and all that stuff, all those readouts. So I took a screenshot of that and uploaded that. And I was like, help me build a diet plan. And I essentially did almost like a keto diet for like 5 months. And I lost 70 pounds last year. And from doing nothing other than dieting and then like walking,
Yeah.
and I feel so much better, man. Like
Yeah.
I'm glad I dug myself out of that hole. I was so fucking, it would have been very easy for me to just sit here and maybe get to the point where I want to fucking kill myself. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
But
yeah.
I refused. I was like, no, this isn't it. I refuse to accept that this is good as it's ever going to be. I refuse to accept that. I gotta, what the fuck are you doing? There's so much life to live. I'm in San Diego and I never leave my apartment. What am I doing? And I made a change, man. And that's the only real answer, is that people have to decide for themselves that they make it. I remember I
Yeah.
saw my shadow against a wall and it was kind of rounded a little bit. And I was like, you fat piece of shit. And that's when I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
My shadow's not lying to me, bro. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
So I was like, I gotta fucking fix this. What am I fucking doing? And yeah, like I said, I lost 70 pounds and just kind of, now I try to be more. If you would have asked me this question then, you probably would have got a different answer because I'd have been all sad and still. But I didn't even want to do the podcast. I was like, dude, I'm so fat. Who am I? I'm representing forward observers and JTACs from the Marine Corps, and I'm like out of shape. Who the fuck are you? Like, you're a bad reflection on this community. That's what I was telling myself. May not be true, but that's what I was telling myself. And I just kind of got really ashamed of myself. And yeah, like I said, you gotta understand. It's like quitting smoking. You're not gonna do it until you want to do it. And when you're
Right.
ready to do it, you'll fucking do it. And I really hope, if you're going through a struggle, if you're having a rough time, that you take a step back and go that you don't have to accept that. You don't have to accept whatever it is that you're in. That situation that you're in right now, you don't have to accept it. Make life better. One step at it could be a little thing. One little thing. Just do one little thing every day that can improve yourself. Start somewhere and, dig yourself out of that hole. It's possible. I do.
Right. Big time. Big time.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, man, and thank you for taking time out of your day.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me or anything?
No, dude. I mean, I like the show. This is similar to my own, and anybody that is maybe considering like reaching out to you to come on your show or coming on my show, think of this. you may not want to record your story. It may be something you don't want to talk about or whatever, but consider that your great great grandchildren could come across this video clip. When I'm gone, when I die, my son has now over 240 episodes of me talking about random stuff that he can just pull up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How valuable is that? And what is that worth? Like, if you record your story, spend a couple hours, and it's from your mouth, and maybe one day your great great grandkid can, like, they're learning about Afghanistan and they know one of their relatives was in it, and they find that video file of you talking about what it was actually like to be there. How valuable is that? You know what I'm saying? So I think what you're doing is great, man. And I know a lot of people are jumping on the podcast game and stuff like that, and I don't ever discourage anybody to do it. I think it's, write a book, do a podcast. Even if you don't want to tell your story to other people, put it down in a journal somewhere, or make your own personal video, because it's important. People that care about you would really appreciate to know what you're thinking,
Right.
what it was like, what it was actually like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, with that, Justin Cramer, ladies and gentlemen.
What up? Oh yeah, check out my website.
Check out his website. My bad.
My bad. So
plug.
Let me plug all my stuff. Former Action Guys podcast, Former Action News. Both of those I'm on Instagram. The podcast is all over YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. My website is jkramergraphics.com. I also, if you're an Anglico guy, I run anglicoshop.com. And then I do digital marketing work, SEO, Google Ads, help people get rankings in AI and stuff. That's my day job now, is digital marketing. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on though.
I appreciate it, brother. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into this episode. Don't forget, we drop episodes every Wednesday. Hit us up on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and follow all of our social medias on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. Leave us a comment, like, share, and thank you for all the support you've done so far. And with that, we'll catch you on the next episode.